I think there was a lot of factors within it.
Yeah.
I think the extreme highs and to the extreme lows is a massive part of it, and hence why I speak to young kids now. I always tell them, you need to be middle. You need to just coast along.
Yeah.
Don't get too high with the highs, don't get too lows with the lows. Just try and be in between and enjoy it. Be present now. Whereas I was extremely high and extremely low.
Hi, and welcome to the There's Another Way podcast with me, Adam Halverson.
And me, Pete Dolby. And you've come to the place where each episode we'll be shining a light on authentic people who have chosen an alternative path to their new normal to find another way.
Hey everyone, Pete and Ads here. We are absolutely delighted to be back up and running in front of the microphones again at There's Another Way Towers. It's been several months since we were last able to record due to unforeseen circumstances. And Ads, I'm just delighted that you're back in the room and able to sit in front of a mic again after what you've been through for the last few months, which is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, thanks Pete. Yeah, so obviously our aim was always to get one out once a week and create a really good cadence for this podcast. But for unfortunate health reasons on my side, which we'll kind of give more detail about in probably its own episode in a few weeks, we've had some delays and we've had some setbacks, but we are raring to get back going. Hopefully all good health-wise, and yeah, keen to get going again.
Brilliant. I know this episode we actually recorded before we had to take a pause, so it was a few months ago we recorded this. So yeah, we're really excited to be able to bring this one, push it live, because it's been a little while, and we've got lots more exciting episodes coming, including another one that we're recording tonight. So getting in front of the mics again is it's delightful. So
absolutely. So today we've got a conversation with Scott Shearer. This is a fascinating insight into the world of professional football. Our story starts with Scott being spotted in a park with his mates and him going to the glamorous heights of Celtic and Wycombe Wanderers, to the harsh realities of professional sport and the mental battles that come with a cutthroat industry. This is a raw and honest story of mental health and professional sport. Please be aware that there is a fair amount of language in this discussion, so maybe if you've got any kids in the car or you're easily offended, then maybe this isn't for you. But we really think it's a fantastic and honest discussion from Scott, and really excited to share it. There's another way. Scott, thanks so much for making the trip. You've been in London today, I think. Thanks so much for coming out to snowy Buckinghamshire.
I know.
turned on some Glaswegian weather for you.
I know, it's back home.
Brilliant. Well, so glad to meet you. Obviously we've been just chatting before we started recording, and really excited about this conversation. Obviously Pete and I have read a little bit of your backstory, and obviously we've understood from our mutual friend a little bit of the story, but we were thinking today just be great to sort of understand a little bit of where things started for you, what was home, and then we'll just take it from there if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Brilliant. So on that note, so obviously I can tell a little bit on the accent, so I'm guessing it started north of the border.
It did, Glasgow, just in the east end of Glasgow. So grew up, great place to grow up, well, for me anyway. I didn't live in a bad area at all. It was a typical, 3-bed semi, next to the school, loads of kids, lots of just being outside as much as you possibly can, playing every sport possible, but mainly football. And then if I fancied a girl, we'd play TIG or tag, as you call it down here. But, there was just my youth was just being outdoors constantly. It's the old classic saying that back then mums would force you to come in, and nowadays, mums are forcing their kids to get out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's my memories of a childhood. We're just constantly being outside. My mum constantly worrying that we were getting into a different area that was quite rough or whatever,
Yeah. Were there any other sports other than football that you were into, or?
I used to try anything, but we weren't in a rich area, and football is the working class sport, so it was something that we didn't have loads of money, so my mum could afford to get us a football. You know, we would have shoes, so you'd find a couple of sticks and that was your goals, and then there you go, you've got a whole day's worth of entertainment. And that's the way it was around my area. And then, you know, even around my area, you know, you had your... In Glasgow especially, each area stays within its area, if you like, you know, and that includes gangs, the lot. So you'd sort of... We had a sort of mini league, if you like, you know, we'd play this area and then next week we'd play that area. There wasn't any structure to it. It was just somebody talking to someone. You would arrange a game of football. So everyone was football mad. Rugby wasn't a really big thing up back, you know, up where I was. Even in school, I remember the PE teacher just stopping it just because we were clotheslining people, and you know there was just no safety to it. You know, it just ended up in fights every time. So there was just, even the school said no more rugby. You know, we'll just put more football on.
Yeah. And what sort of side of town were you? What was your team?
What do you mean? No, I was Celtic. I was brought up
Celtic.
Yeah,
Okay.
Celtic.
Yeah. Okay. And so what? So football, was it in the family or was it kind of?
You know, it's the weird thing. No, not really. You know, my dad still isn't. He's not an active person. My brother wasn't very active as a child growing up. But it was actually my brother that got me into being. I played as a goalkeeper.
Right.
And I don't know if it was just him being really smart, and he kept saying to me, "You're really good. You know, you go in goals." When it was just me and him in the back garden.
He just wanted to let them.
And I think he just wanted to
yeah.
smash the ball at me, but I ended up getting quite good, and I ended up, because he was saying I was good at it.
Yeah.
I then joined the primary school, joined the football team as a goalkeeper, and back then nobody really wanted to be a goalkeeper. But I was a chubby kid.
Oh, really?
Or as my mum would say, I was big boned.
Yeah.
And then I started playing for the school. And, you know, and then at that time you had an A team and a B team, starting the B team, and then straight away I was put up to the A team and things like that. And then you start getting recognition, and we all like a bit of, you know, a bit of praise.
Yeah.
So I was like, I like this.
And sort of, were you focused on academics, or was it just
No.
all just sport?
I'll be honest. I was one of them kids, and especially in high school. I mean, my brother was good academically, and teachers would say, "You're not Robert Shearer's brother, are you?" And it was like, But I didn't put the effort in. I came out with good grades without really, you know, putting a lot of effort into it. And my mum always says that to me. She went, you know, "You're always going to have to live with what if."
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't need to worry about it, because obviously I eventually went into, you know, making a career in professional football. But you know, that came late on, and it was a bit of a worry at a point for me, because I was like, shit, I've sort of messed about here, and I might need to now, you know, do something else to get to where I should have been.
Right.
And was there a plan B at that stage, or you didn't really know?
I mean, this was it. So throughout my younger years, from sort of 10, 11, I always played with the sort of really good football teams.
Yeah.
There was a team I played with called Hillwood Boys Club, and we were incredible.
Really?
I mean, I think 80% went on to play professionally,
Oh, wow.
or get signed up on schoolboy forms. But unfortunately, I was one of the only ones that didn't get that. I didn't go down that route, so I had to then shift what I wanted to do, and I went to college for 2 years and done college, and then I realised, you know what, I couldn't get rid of football. It was just there in my head, and I just done everything possible to make it. And that went from, when I finished college, I went full time as a lifeguard.
Oh, really?
So, and then I used to have to swap so that I could make sure that I was available to play on the Saturday. I had to then do everyone else's Sunday shifts, which were the worst shifts, obviously.
Yeah.
So I was doing every Sunday just so I could play on a Saturday. And I'll never forget, a guy called Willie Cree, who was my manager at the time, sat me down in his office and he went, "Scott, come on." And he was sitting back relaxing. He went, "Scott, it's a bit time you realised this dream's not in reality." And I went, "All right." And he went, "Couple of years hard graft, you could be sitting where I'm sitting." And I'll never forget, I was 18 at the time, and I went, "Willie, in a couple of years, if I'm sitting where you're sitting, I've failed. You know, it didn't go down too well with your boss at the time. But, and then luckily, not luckily, I don't believe in luck, but, you know, I kept going, and fortunately, there was a scout from my first club, Albion Rovers, and I was playing just park, you know, under 18s, just in local parks, and a team called Tower Hearts. And one of the scouts from Albion Rovers was just driving past, and he pulled in.
Wow.
Watched the game, and then I get invited to go on a trial. And then it was weird because Albion Rovers were known to be the worst club in football, especially in Scotland. But at that time, they just had a real big shift, and they were going on to be full time. And what they were doing is, they were all the younger lads who had been released from Premier League clubs, just signing them up. So we were just a team of young, fit athletes.
Yeah. Wow.
And then we nearly get promoted in our first year.
So you got straight into the first team, or you had to work into that?
Again, so many ups and downs in a career, and it started from day one from me. You know, so excited to. First of all, I had to take a pay cut to go into professional football from a lifeguard. £100 a week, big £100 a week I got.
Yeah.
So, got into that.
Just quickly. So at this point, you're still living at home.
Yeah.
And mum and dad, are they, you know, or parents, are they kind of like, what are you doing with your life, or are they putting any pressure on, or are they pretty chilled about the whole thing?
I couldn't have been more fortunate with the parents that I have, to be honest. They've done everything they possibly could, apart from play the games for me.
Right.
You know, I look back and I feel so much gratitude towards everything they've done. They worked as taxi drivers, and you know, they'd be out all day, and my dad would get home early to drive me, when I was 14, drive me an hour to Perth to train with St Johnstone.
Amazing.
He would then, you know, my mum the next night would come back home early to take me to train with Hearts, and then, you know, all of these things. And at the time you don't realise it, you know, but you look back and you think, how fortunate.
Yeah. And were they just happy to support your dream, or was it did they want you to refocus, or were they putting any pressure on any direction, or
there was there was no pressure from them whatsoever in anything. At that time I'm not going to lie, I did have ideas about what other plans to have, and one of them was physiotherapy. I thought back then I even thought, if I can't do it, I'd like to work with people that are involved in it. So the job was the plan was, if this doesn't happen, to do my qualifications, and there was one of my neighbours who, she was a physiotherapist, and she says, I can get you a job as a sort of trainee, if you like, and we'll put you through everything, but you'll learn on the job.
Yeah.
So that was already in the background waiting. But then obviously the Albion Rovers thing came up, and
At that time, when Albion Rovers, they spotted you playing in the park, did you think this is my big break, or were you a bit sceptical about what the opportunity might arise from that? Or
no, there was nothing to be sceptical about. No. It was just this unbelievable opportunity.
It was. So you knew at the time it was yeah.
But then, like I mentioned, the ups and downs. You know, it's so much like excitement towards it, and then going to my first day of my very first pre-season, and in Scotland it was old school, you know, very old school. So the first day of pre-season was just what's called a fartlek, which is everybody needs to stay together, and the manager stands there with a whistle, and you run. On my whistle you sprint, on my whistle you jog, and you do that for 45 minutes. And on the first just jog, I went down a hole and ruptured my ligaments in my ankle.
You're joking.
So it was like I'd been signed to be the number one goalkeeper, and that was that stopped that. You know, the other lad come in, done really well, had a great season. I didn't play. The first 2 seasons I didn't really play. It was very stop-start.
Wow.
So it sort of gave me an insight as to, okay, this is what this career's going to be like. I either accept that now and stick at it and just give everything to this, or I go elsewhere.
And I'm just sorry, just to go back as well, but the guy who pulled into the park that you were playing in? Because obviously we were just chatting about, you know, kids playing football, you know, the amount of setups, you know, just in this area alone is unbelievable. You know, my lad's playing a level where scouts are turning up and all this kind of stuff. But did he tell you sort of what it was that caught his eye about you just from driving past?
No.
No.
He didn't speak to me. He spoke to my manager at the time.
Right.
Who then sort of said to me, you know, you've been asked to go on a trial. But back then, I mean, I think I must have been about 18. And I was big.
Yeah.
You know, I was a monster then. I done everything that I could to be the best that I could back then, you know, to the point where in one of my seasons with Albion Rovers, my manager actually banned me from going to the gym because I just wouldn't stop.
Right.
I'd train and then I'd go to the gym and I'd be there for 4 hours and just beast myself. Just always trying to get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't get told, but I was pretty... You know, I was big, and as a goalkeeper in Scotland, well, all there is crosses. I'd come out and just destroy people.
Yeah,
and I was just confident, loud, quite good. You know, I could kick the ball a mile.
Yeah.
So before all these new age goalkeepers came in,
Yeah.
their job was quite easy, and you just had to punt it.
Yeah, they weren't looking for
A centre midfield player.
Yeah. Or
Thankfully,
sweeper keeper.
It's changed a bit, hasn't it?
And just for the people who can't see Scott, obviously, me and Pete aren't that short, and
It's a duck down when he came in the door.
yeah, exactly. And you're still not a small lad, let's put it that way. But yeah, so yeah, I guess I know what you mean. The game's changed a lot. You know, it's a lot more technical. Keepers have got to be able to play with their feet. And I guess what you're saying is you didn't have that sort of pressure. It was just the basics. You know, big, commanding, vocal. You know,
just raw talent where they obviously felt that with some coaching, that you know that could progress to something.
But I guess what it sounds like is you had a lot of self-discipline, even though things had not gone potentially your way by the age of 18. Because, you know, obviously we all know the stories of Harry Kane, Jamie Vardy. You know, they came into the game sort of to what we know them as now, relatively late. But I guess by 18, if you're playing in the park and actually you're not really with a serious club, or well, I don't know if it was a serious club or not, but it's...
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
No. So actually, it sounded like you had still some grit and resolve to sort of keep yourself.
Yeah, it's something I don't think you ever look back and give yourself as much praise as what you should at times. That's everybody, right? Yeah. And when you say that there, it's like, yeah, I mean, even back then, like a Friday night, I was in a routine. You know, everything was towards the Saturday. Back then, obviously, I had to do all my own kit and everything, so it was making sure all my kit was in the bag and my boots were clean and my studs were tight and everything, all these little bits that you think about now and you're like, I don't see many kids would be able to do that now. You know, everything's done for them.
Yeah, 100%.
And what was driving that discipline and that fire in you that you wanted to prepare for every game? And did anyone was there anyone in the dressing room that took you under their wing when you were new to the club? Because if you're being injured, obviously it must have been difficult. Was it?
That was before professional.
Okay.
That's before I signed for Albion Rovers. That would be when I was 16. You know, from earlier, I always remember sitting with one of my best friends at the time, and he's like, "Let's go out and play football." And I was like, "I've got to clean my boots."
Oh, really?
And I had to take every stud out and clean the bottom. I had a bucket and a basin and a brush outside, and you know, I was cleaning everything. And then my mate was going, "God's sake, hurry up!"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Mate, if I don't do this, then I just knew that I wouldn't be fully prepared." So even from a really early age, I had that. But I think that come from probably my mum.
Yeah.
You know, just always doing everything for me and me taking it on. So yeah, it was from a really early age I had that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so then going back to the rupture, so I guess that's 6 to 9 months?
No. So with an ankle, it's probably about 2 months maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the other guy got in.
That's it.
Played well, and
that's it. Being a goalkeeper, you know, you've only got one place that you can be. So if the other one's playing well, it's the most challenging thing to be doing, because all you want to do when you are a footballer is play football.
Yeah.
Training every day it doesn't cut it.
And the squads in those days probably weren't as inflated as they are today. So, like you say, once you're in, right?
Well, that's it. And not so much because we had such an old school manager.
Yeah.
He was horrible.
Was he?
But again, just probably built up so much determination within me to, not let anyone, make me feel inferior, really. Because a lot of people in football do that. They use their sort of place within the team to try and, put people down all the time or to make themselves feel a bit better. And it happens even in all the professional leagues to this day. But he was like that, and it made me, you can either sink or swim.
Yeah.
And instead of me bowing down to it and being like, oh God, being fearful of him, it sort of I had this bit of grit and determination to be like, no, I'm going to show him. If he says that I'm this, I'm going to prove that I'm that. So that from an early age, that's the way I was. And still to this day, you'll never lose that competitiveness. Yeah. But even at this day, my daughters will say this, I'll happily make them cry at Monopoly.
Right.
Happily, yeah. I don't care,
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Superb. What was because obviously my vision of football life, Glasgow or Scotland, when would this have been? So I guess the 90s, is that?
This was, 1990, was it 99?
Yeah.
99,
so I guess the game is getting kind of to what we know about it, but I guess there's going to be elements where, what was the dressing room like? Was there camaraderie? Was it just...
Oh, it was amazing.
Oh, really?
Again, like I said, we had a team full of young boys, that had all just been released but had been given this opportunity to sort of, give them another chance to go, step backwards to go forwards, if you like. And then there was still some part-time players. So you had the older lads that had good jobs, and they'd come in 2 nights a week and then they'd play in the weekend, sort of thing. And they were great as well because you then got that experience from them. They'd been around, they'd been there and done it, sort of thing, especially in the lower leagues in Scotland, which are tough. It was amazing. It was just amazing. Like, back then you could get away with all sorts, and we used to have there was so much banter within that dressing room.
Yeah.
Because we used to have to, Albion Rovers does not have its own training ground.
Right.
So we had to transport the goals up to a local park, which is next to the college, and this is in Coatbridge, just outside of Glasgow. And it was amazing. We would just, some of the stuff we would do. Forgetting that the minibus is plastered with Albion Rovers on the side, pull up to people at the traffic lights and they've got a window down and we're starting to squirt water into their cars and shouting at people and all sorts, and it just always got back to the club.
Oh, really?
But yeah, it was funny. It was really good times.
Was it a boozy culture, or was it it was still pre-professional, or?
Very boozy.
Yeah.
But at that time it was at the right time. So if we had a Wednesday off, Tuesday night, you'd be out in town, and Tuesday night used to be one of the best nights in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So it was student night, so it was cheap, it was busy. So we would always go out then. And then Saturday after a game, we were always out because we were all young and single and just loving life.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the game's changed a little bit since those days, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah, massively. Obviously, you can't do it now.
Yeah.
You can't. The levels of fitness are just beyond belief at times.
Yeah.
You see some of the stuff that's getting posted, even through lockdown, when you see some players doing 5 kilometre runs in like 14 minutes, you're thinking, how's that possible?
Yeah. I think the notion of pre-season has changed, hasn't it? Because they're not coming back out of shape. They keep themselves in check when they're.
That was it. Pre-season used to be like the first week or two was to get in shape.
Yeah.
Then you would start doing the fitness work and building that up. Whereas now, you need to come back ready to hit the ground running, as they say.
Yeah.
You need to have a level of fitness going back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and then so Albion Rovers, after the pranks and the drink, what happened after Albion Rovers? Where did you go from there?
So it sort of changed for me in my third season there.
Yeah.
We got a new manager that came in, and he really liked me. And I'd played a few games the season before.
Yeah.
I think there was a little bit of interest, so the club thought, we need to sort of explore this. So he played me every game, and within that season I was on trial everywhere. You know, I came down to Everton, Derby, Bolton. I was meant to sign at Celtic. I'd been training there for 3 months, just going in there every day, and then going back to Albion Rovers on a Friday.
Right. And the club knew about it.
Yeah. I was going there, and then
it,
then I got told I was going to sign for Celtic, which obviously would have been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then because they got through to the next stage of the Champions League at that point, Martin O'Neill decided that they needed a more experienced goalkeeper.
Right.
So they signed a Spanish guy for Livingston. So that was heartbreaking, you know, not just for me, but for my dad as well, who were all massive Celtic fans. So yeah, that third season really sort of shaped where my career was going to go. And then, fortunately for me, every day I went into Celtic, I treated it like it was the last day I would be there. So I was just like, give it everything, enjoy every second. Someone asks you to do something, do it before they finish their sentence. Do you know what I mean? It was like you don't say no to anything. And then there was a youth team coach, a guy called Kenny McDowell, who he really liked me, and he'd watched me with the first team. And I'm just going to say, for me, I'm training with my idols at the time.
I was going to say, you must have seen some serious talent on display.
I'm training every day with Henrik Larsson, John Hartson, Chris Sutton, Neil Lennon. You know,
what an experience!
That was vintage Celtic side.
And then they sort of knew my name, and it was like, oh my God, they know my name.
Yeah.
You know, and then it was, so for me it was something that I'll never be able to forget.
But I guess I just got goosebumps. Wow. I guess there must have been an element though where you'd gone from being seen in a park, so to then 3 years later doing this. So I guess there must have been an element where you were like, take this for what it is. As in, you must have had a level of realism, which is from where you've gone from to there. Even if it didn't work out, surely it was a huge positive.
Yeah, but I think at that time I was supremely confident, unbelievably confident that I knew, because at that point, up until that point, I had no goalkeeping coaching at all. Everything was just raw. So when I was going in and I was speaking to coaches, they were like, "You've had no coaching," and they sort of seen the project that I could be, I think. But the downside for me was my age. You know, I was in my last season there, I was turning 23.
Yeah, so you were.
So I wasn't a young player.
Yeah.
So if I was signing, a lot of the clubs in England at the time, they would have wanted me to be in their youth setup, sort of one of the older ones, but I was too old for that. So
you mean as in terms of moulding your skill set as a keeper? Because 23 is quite young for a keeper, isn't it?
It is, but I would needed to have been a first team player.
Okay, yeah.
And the role that I was going down for was mostly to be the sort of older player coming through, you know, the project that would support the first team goalkeepers in training, etc. But wage-wise, you were on a different level. So unfortunately for me, that's something I couldn't change, but I was happy to just get the experiences. But yeah, luckily, like I was saying about Kenny was very good friends with a guy called Eric Black, who was assistant to Gary McAllister at Coventry.
Yeah.
And Kenny mentioned me to Eric because they were looking for a goalkeeper. So the late Alan Hodgkinson, who was known as he's passed away now, but he's known as a goalkeeping guru. He was one of the first ever goalkeeping coaches. Hodgie came up and watched me without me knowing, and within those games, you know, I'd made mistakes, but he just loved me, and he saw the project within me, and he you know, got the club to take the gamble on me. Wow. So that.
So was it still the same attributes that had got you, like, just commanding, strong?
Yeah, exactly that. And I went down on trial for a week
to Coventry,
and you know, the manager put on a little game in training for me, and it was with some of the younger pros and some of the ones that were out of favour. And you know, I was just bullying people, telling me, I'd be like shouting at them, you would have heard me from a mile away.
Yeah.
That's the way I was.
I wish you could have gotten David De Gea's ear a bit more.
Yeah,
we're both United fans, so probably not a popular choice, but we go up quite a bit, and we've had, obviously the last few seasons have been so up and down, but obviously De Gea, one of the areas he really struggled, with his feet, but he wasn't commanding enough.
No.
Great shot stopper.
Great shot stopper.
And that was from
Unbelievable
day
shot
one.
stopper.
Yeah.
Commanding side.
Yeah.
I remember Blackburn when they were just in swinging corners all the time and
Yeah.
bullying them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was luckily one thing that I didn't lack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think from that moment, you know, after that one practice game, you know, Gary McAllister came up to me, and at the time I'm thinking this is just training again. You know, I'm just happy to experience it. And he came up and he's like, right, we need to sort a contract out.
Oh, wow.
And I was like,
You must have been
shit, this is actually happening.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, wow. So, and when I signed the contract, I asked him, what was it? And he went, like, you've bullied 4 defenders in front of you. 2 of them had played Premier League games. He's like, you've just bullied them like they're nothing. He's like, I've never seen somebody in a trial do that.
Amazing.
So for me, it was like, all right, well, I know what you want from me then.
And Coventry would have been, I think, Championship at that time. Yeah.
I mean, it worked in my favour because Coventry had come down and then the parachute payments had stopped.
Yeah.
So, you know, they had to then scale back, get rid of the lads who were on Premier League money and they sort of had to take a couple of gambles, and I was a gamble for them. 100% I was a gamble. It was me and a few other younger players. They had signed another lad called Michael Doyle from Celtic.
Oh, yeah.
And he stayed there for years, great player. But they'd signed sort of me and him from up there, you know, and took a punt on us, if you like.
Was this the first professional contract that you signed? Because you did the stint at Celtic, but you were training there and then...
Oh, no, because I was at Albion Rovers for the 3 years.
Yeah, okay.
And they were professionally set up.
So, you'd already,
I was full-time there for 3 years.
Yeah.
But again, it's nothing compared to when you come down to England and go into a championship club. So yeah, that was, you know, I think back now and I'm like, I had 23 years and all I'd done was live at my parents', and then it was like, but I could just see, at that time I always remember it was just excitement.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get away from Glasgow and just experience something new and just be part of like this opportunity.
Yeah.
So that was incredible.
Brilliant. Wow, what an experience that must have been.
And did you relish the challenge, or were you nervous? Were you sort of shitting yourself when you got into games?
I was shitting myself from day one. I've come from being in the Albion Rovers dressing room where no one was above anyone else. Yeah, we were all very equal, and I come to an environment where people are earning 25 grand a week, you know, and you get different egos and you've got different personalities and it's totally different. But one thing that I never changed was just who I was. And, you know, it was funny because when I first moved down, Glasgow is a great place to grow up. I loved it, but it's nuts, right? It's nuts. And in Scotland, if, you know, cut a long story short, Gary McAllister pulled me in and said, you can't just keep fighting with fans. Right? Because, I mean, I'd be out and somebody would come up and say something to me, and in Glasgow, if someone says something to you, you just sort it.
Yeah.
And it just happens. And somebody looks at you wrong and you go, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
And then that's it. It's just a fight.
Yeah.
And I was getting that every weekend. Even my mum she was reading all these things on the forums. So she was going online and reading this fans forum thing. I got a phone call Monday morning. Scott, were you fighting with someone at the kebab van outside Jumping Jacks in Coventry? I was like, no, Mum, no, that wasn't me.
I think I've been there actually.
Yeah, so I had to change a lot in a way.
Yeah.
You know, rein it in a little bit, and that Gary McAllister said to me, "When if you continue this way, you're going to be back up there before you know it.
Really?
But if you do change, you know, you can have a career down here."
Yeah. And how was he as a manager to work for? Was he play for? Was he?
I mean, I can't say much because the guy gave me an opportunity, but he was a player manager and they just couldn't grasp that none of us were as good as what he was or players he played with.
Yeah.
You know, he was the sort of person that would no warm up or anything, but then he'd just be like, I'm going to hit this ball this way and it's going to swerve around this player and it's going to go to his right foot, and he would just do it, and you're like, Oh my God.
I see. I often think that quite a few players struggle with that. I imagine Roy Keane struggles with that.
He's the first person I thought.
Because he just clearly can't get the drive that he had into other players.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously Henri's done some management. You know, I think it must be a challenge because obviously McAllister was a proper player. I mean,
unbelievable.
Steven Gerrard.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Lampard. I mean, Lampard especially. I think with that because you can see he's so smart, but he must just be like, why can't you do that like I did?
Exactly.
And that's obviously what happened with McAllister.
That was a little bit like that. Again, within the first 6 months, you know, he had some real personal issues where his wife was dying and she ended up passing away, and then he walked away because of that. You know, it was just...
Oh, it's terrible.
He had young kids at the time and stuff, so that sort of changed that. So I didn't really have long with him to really... He must have been going through hell for I don't know how long. So when you look back at that, I don't really know if I can really comment on what he was like as a manager, but he gave me an opportunity that I can never not be grateful for.
Absolutely, yeah. And you were in the first team at that time?
Yeah, I remember going down to the first day of pre-season, and I was just, I mean, although I was supremely confident, I was just happy to be there, you know, and I walked in and there's a kit man, and I'm like, oh God, this is unreal, like you get your own kit wash and stuff. So these small 1% were just, everything was done for you, your boots are clean for you, and I didn't like all that, and I walked in and the kit man, George, he's a brilliant guy, he's actually one of my clients now with what I do. He was the first person that really looked after me, and you know, you never forget those things, but he turned around and said to me, what's your name? And I was like, Scott Shearer, and he went, all right, and he handed me this kit and it had number 1 on it, and I was like, am I number 1? And he was like, of course you are. And I went, oh my God. I was expecting like 38 or something, you know, some high number within the squad. And it was that like precise moment where I realised, right, this is real now. I've got an unbelievable chance to be, you know, have a really good career here.
And you said you were supremely confident around that time. So that first debut was number 1 when you were going out between the sticks. How was that?
Played loads of pre-season games that year, and it was brilliant. It was good. And then I always remember we went to play our first match, and it was Watford away, and it got cancelled as we were eating pre-match dinner because there was a lad on loan from Man United who died in a car accident the night before. I can't remember his name.
Wow, I don't remember.
I vaguely remember that.
It was 2003.
Yeah.
So the game got cancelled as we were eating pre-match at the Holiday Inn in Watford. So my debut had then sort of prolonged, and then I remember we played Peterborough in the sort of cup game on a Tuesday night, and I got man of the match.
It
was like, it was just, I mean, Highfield Road was an unbelievable stadium to play at. I loved it.
And that was before the Ricoh Arena.
Yeah, that was the old school, you know, 20,000, 22,000 or whatever it was, but it was just noisy.
So that was your proper debut.
Yeah.
I mean, just how, like, just explain to me, because obviously, look, I still have dreams now of getting my kit on, you know, and I didn't even get anywhere close.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but like, just how does it feel when you are in that changing room? You're walking through the tunnel. I just can't get my head around it.
I honestly don't believe I took any of it in.
I can imagine, yeah.
I was just in so much of a zone, and I was, before a game, like, I felt like I wanted to hurt someone. I was in that much of a zone. I was like so much pent up aggression and anger. I don't know why it was anger, but
half the United players could do with that right now.
I was like,
you could bottle it up and sell it.
Yeah, and it was like, you know, I had certain things that I'd do before I'd go out in the tunnel, and this is from Albion Rovers.
What kind of stuff did you like?
I'd go and get the match ball off the ref, and I would bounce it 20 times, throw it against the wall 20 times just to get a bit of handling, feel the ball, like get a real good feel of it.
Yeah.
And then I'd give the ball back, and then I'd go around all the players, you know, I'd look at them square in the eyes, and, you know, I'd say good luck, and do just these weird routines that I'd done. And but it sort of just got me so fired up, man. I couldn't wait to get out.
Did you ever hug the opposition goalkeeper
Never.
like players do now? I just don't understand it.
Nah, never.
It's like, you're going to war, guys. What the hell?
I was a bit like Roy Keane.
Yeah.
He'd just be focused ahead.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, if one of them come up to me and says good luck, I'd say good luck, but I would never approach them. I've never asked to swap jerseys with anyone. I've just never been of that.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no.
So it's just quickly, it's a bit of a segue, but it's taken me back to a story. So a mate of mine in my first job, and he played a decent level, but he, as a junior, was he played for Arsenal, and he actually got into the first team squad.
Wow.
And he, I've never forgotten this story. Bruce Rioch was a manager at the time, and he came in and said, look, Ian, as in Ian Wright, has failed a fitness test. And it was a FA Cup game against Derby. He said, Andy, you're in. And he'd never played in the first team before. You know, he was pretty young. And I actually played against him. I mean, what a player. And with him for a company team. And so he sat there, got his kit on, and he's going through this emotion, and he's like, he's going to play alongside Dennis Bergkamp.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
And he literally gets his boots on. He's just like, Bruce Rioch comes back in. Andy, I'm really sorry, but Ian's fit. He's going to play. You're on the bench.
Oh my God.
Never got on. Never played for Arsenal. And, you know, it just went.
Sliding doors, small margins.
And I just cannot. I've never forgotten that story because, you know, I mean, that close.
Yeah.
Because that could have changed his whole life. He could have played that game, scored a hat trick.
Yeah.
Boom, he's gone.
Well,
you know, he just.
Yeah, Marcus Rashford was third, fourth, fifth choice striker. And we had an injury, glut of injuries, and he came in for that game and played really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously hasn't scaled the heights since. But
No, but and I appreciate maybe Arsenal at that time was maybe a bit different to Coventry, but I mean I just can't get my head around. You know, you get man of the match in your debut. Do you say in your debut game?
Yeah, I mean it was just. And then it was like, I remember the second game was Ipswich at Portman Road, and they were a club I'd been on trial at when I was 16. Really? You know, and they just didn't even look at me really. You know, I went down, it was just make numbers up for something. And I remember after it, the Hodgie came up to me and he's like, they've already asked questions about you, where did we get you, and this, that, the other. And it was just like, I mean, these are 20 years ago, these memories.
Yeah.
So they've obviously anchored within me, but it's just unbelievable to hear when you're at that stage and because don't get me wrong, although I was saying I was supremely confident, there was always doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was always a doubt. There was always a fear, you know, that you're an imposter, that you're not good enough, you shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm playing with Steve Staunton. You know, this guy's in World Cups and I'm playing with him. I'm like, what am I doing here? Why am I in the same dressing room
Must
as him?
be surreal. I mean, I just can't get my head around it. But there must have been a side of you with Ipswich where you were like, fuck you. Like,
I just think I was so focused on doing well, you know, just not just to do well, but to prove to myself that I could actually do it, you know, because they always say, you know, if you think you've worked hard enough to get to where you need to be, once you get there, you need to even work hard. You need to work even harder to continue to be there, to then progress even further. So my mindset was, it was like being at Coventry to get to that level was this incredible goal, and I didn't think I'd be able to achieve it, if I was honest. It was one of those ones, shoot for the stars type of thing, and I'd done it, and it was like, at that time, even back then, I was like, what have I got to aim for now? Where is the aim? And it was like I had to reset everything. It was like, right, I've got here, I now need to work even harder. Bear in mind, I told you my manager banned me from the gym and all sorts, and then it was like, what do I need to do to be? And it was at that point, like 20 years ago, before it became cool, I was doing core ball workouts and I was doing, you know, yoga. I was doing all these things back then to just try and become better.
Did you have anyone that you looked up to in the goalkeeping profession around that time that you could use for inspiration for all that kind of stuff you just talked about? Or
Obviously, the people that you work with
Yeah.
are always a massive part of that. And I had a guy called Gavin Ward, who's now QPR's goalkeeping coach. And Ward, he came in as a sort of 33-year-old at the time, and he was coming in to sort of be back up to me as such. So if I had a wobble, he would come in for a few games, etc. But Ward, he came in at 33, one of the best physiques I've ever seen in my life. You know, just a good guy, honest guy, hard-working guy. And he was like, it's where I get my sort of values from. I love the old school values, and I'll never change that. I don't care. Hence why I'm not in football anymore as well. I just don't like the way it is. But massively on old school values. And if he was out before me on the training pitch, bear in mind I was the number one.
Yeah.
You know, if he was out before me, it was a fine. You know, and then I had to do something, whatever he wanted me to do, I had to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and back then when one of the older pros said jump, you said how high. You know, you respected them. And to the point we would share rooms when we went on away trips. My first away trip, I'll never forget it. Walked in and he was like, milk and two, son. And I'd just lay down. I was like, right, up, making the teas. And then he's like, at 6 o'clock, I want you to run me a bath.
What? Really?
And I was just like, yeah, all right. And it wasn't, I didn't say no to it, or it was just like, okay, that's the way it was then. And it was, so he was probably somebody I would say that I really looked up to. And not just because of those things and he was experienced, but how he trained.
Yeah.
You know, physically, he wanted to push me every single day. He didn't want to be number two, and I really loved that because there was this competitiveness between us, but also a respect between us. And that's where I really started learning the whole goalkeepers union.
Yeah. So it sounds like he was there to help coach and push you, but he also wanted to be number one as well, did he?
Well, he wanted to play.
He wanted to play.
100% he wanted. And if he was playing, he wouldn't give a shit about me.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, when we were training, we didn't fucking like each other.
Oh, really? Okay.
You would like because when you're training as a goalkeeper, you're serving. You know, so you're volleying, you're kicking the ball, you're trying to score. You're working that goalkeeper who's working in the set. You'd always try and give them fucking horrible dippy shots and everything. You would want them to drop the ball more than catch it, so that the coach is going, oh, he's not having a good time, or you know, you'd want to come out on top every session.
Right.
And I'll never forget as well that first pre-season before Wardy signed, we brought in Pavel Cernicek. Right, he'd come in and he was so nice, lovely guy.
He always seemed it, actually.
Lovely guy. And then I heard that Ed went upstairs and said to the manager, you need to sign me, I'm fucking miles better than Scott. And I get told that the next day, and I confronted him the next day before training. I went, don't ever fucking talk about me like that again to the manager. It's on, like that's it, it's competition between me and you, don't fucking talk to me.
So hold on, so there was three keepers at the club now?
No, Pavel didn't sign.
I
fucking smashed him that week in training.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Like if he was doing this, I was like, I'm doing more.
Yeah.
He caught 10, I was catching 20. Like the competitiveness in me was just stupid.
Wow.
To the point, even to this day, if I'm in the sauna, I always have a laugh with this with Susie, my partner. If I'm in the sauna 20 minutes and I'm like, right, that's me, and someone walks in, I'm like, I'm going to stay in here until they go out. And it's weird, but it's just ingrained in me now, so it's horrible. But I love it. So that week, Pavel I blew him away.
Yeah.
And then ended up signing. He was brilliant. I called Peggy Arfexad from Liverpool. Gary McAllister had been with him at Liverpool.
Yeah.
He was hilarious. He didn't care, you know, he would drive from Liverpool to Coventry in a big Cadillac Escalade every day. You know, be smoking cigarettes and typical French, just smoking all the time.
Sounds like Bartes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was really just between me and Waddy, and that's where, you know, the real respect from me and him grew. And still to this day, you know, I've went in and met him at QPR a few times just to watch them train and stuff. So, yeah, appreciated that guy so much.
Amazing. And so how did it progress at Coventry?
So again, Gary McAllister left sort of 6 months, 7 months in. Then Eric took over and done really well. You know, we were outsiders to get into the playoffs. And then...
And you're playing every game at this point?
I had come out for a spell. Wardy had went in, and then I just went, right, I've got to get back in and just try to beat him in training every day, everything that we were doing. You know, I was always trying to be better than him so that when he had a bad game, it was made for me to go in. And that happened. Notts Forest away, I remember, and we beat them 2-0. But I got back in, played the remainder of the season. I think my first season I played 33 games. So
yeah.
I mean, for me, it was a massive success, considering, in all honesty, I wasn't expecting to play one when I first moved.
That's unreal.
Yeah. So 33 games. And then, but towards the end of the season, they got rid of Eric because he wasn't a big enough name. And Richard Keys was a big Cov fan. And apparently the story goes, you know, he got Peter Reid to come in because the following season after that, they were moving to the Rico. So they wanted this big profile. And to be honest, from day one, he fucking didn't like me. And that's... I watched something a while ago and they were chatting about that, how someone's opinion of you can just totally derail your whole career. It didn't derail me, but it just... I'd went from number one, I was in Scotland squads all the time, and, you know...
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, you know, after 7 games, he just didn't like me, and they brought in a lad from Man United, Luke Steele.
Oh, yeah.
They brought Steele in on loan, and he was a great guy. Still keep in touch with him now, and Steele was a good goalkeeper as well, to be fair, but there was times where he needed a break. But Peter Reid just didn't like me at all. And then he got sacked that season, and then they brought in Mickey Adams, who is an absolute arse piece.
Yeah,
and
it does seem.
Yeah, and
it does seem that.
So, and again, I just kept working, but he just didn't like me. And to be fair to him, I've got to give him, you know, a bit on this, but he actually was honest to me. He said, I don't think you're good. I don't want you in my squad. And I can't not respect honesty. So it was like, all right, fair enough.
But like you said, it always baffles me how, you know, you can play 33 games in a season, get the team to where they are. You know, what changes? I mean, you know, just how can the opinion be so different?
Yeah, again, it's just different individuals.
Yeah,
you know, and that's what football is. That's why there's such a massive turnaround in squads, because a new manager comes in. I think certain clubs are doing it differently now, like Brentford. You know, they bring a head coach in.
Yeah, I mean, they're a smartly run football club, aren't they?
Yeah, and
Brighton.
Yeah. So these guys are told you coach with, you know, what gets brought in. They've got a say, obviously, but you know, back then it was, if a manager didn't like you, they just made your life hell.
Yeah.
You know, and they would just do everything to sort of make you leave.
It must be so unsettling because you've made the move down to England, you're playing for a big club in the Championship, you've got your foot in the door and you're number one, and then suddenly out of nowhere Eric's gone and, you know, new manager comes in and it's disruption again.
Yeah, and that's all football is.
Yeah.
It is, it's just peaks and troughs constantly.
Yeah.
You win one week, you get man of the match, fucking high as a kite.
Yeah.
Next week, you've one squirreled through your legs.
Yeah.
You're the villain.
Yeah.
You're a snake's belly.
And there's so much more pressure on a keeper, because if that happens in midfield, you've got, you know,
of course,
people that can compensate for you or mop it up. But as a keeper, you'd be, you know.
But I think the role of a goalkeeper evolved through that period. I think Arsene Wenger really evolved it, because he came out publicly and said the number one position in my team is my goalkeeper. And, you know, and he started putting a bit of strength in the goalkeeping department, whereas before it was never really looked as an area, you know, it was like, you're a goalkeeper, stop the ball going in the net, job done. But Arsene Wenger sort of at that point had started saying, no, my goalkeeper is first priority in my squad. And that sort of started edging the goalkeeper up the pecking order, if you like. I think we were just an afterthought to most managers. All right, we've got him, right, he can go and goal, whatever. So yeah, that was that, and that was Coventry done. I then had to move on. But again, it just goes into all these things that people don't realise in football. You know, I was a 24-year-old, I'd just bought a big house, and then I get told I'd just signed a new contract the year before, and then it's like, you're not wanted, find a new club. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I've just...
But I guess you don't have to legally, right? You can just sit on your contract.
You can, but again, I was never one to... I wanted to play.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted to play, and whatever level that was at, that was at. That was the level I was good enough to play at. So, but again, what people don't understand with behind the scenes in football, this is what really annoys me now about when they talk about loyalty and everything. Players are made to be villains because they are looking after themselves.
Yeah.
Because no football club really cares about a player. In all honesty, none of them. And that I've seen that so many times. When I was told I could leave Coventry, Eric Black was assistant to Steve Bruce at Birmingham, and Eric phoned me and he went, I'm going to get you to come in here, you'll be number 2. Mike Taylor was the goalkeeper. He went, you'll be there as a backup, but to push him.
Yeah.
And I was like, amazing. Like,
Yeah. Great keeper.
Can't wait. And he's like, right, I'm going to put it to Steve. Steve Bruce phoned Peter Reid. Peter Reid was like, don't fucking touch him. Don't touch him with a barge pole.
Why would he go that far? Like,
he's known to do it. He's been known to do it with a lot of players.
That's really nasty.
And then Steve Bruce went back to Eric and went, I can't sign him. Like, Reedy's told me he's this, he's that.
But Eric works
and
with you.
Eric's like, he's not.
Yeah.
But he's like, well, this is just in the back of my mind now. So he didn't sign me.
Oh.
So I've then went from going to to Birmingham, who's in the Championship, to
Yeah.
get to push. And in that season as well, Doncaster had bid for me just before they moved into the new stadium. I think they'd put a bid of 50,000 in. And I'd said to Coventry, I went, I've got another year and a bit left. So you give me that 50,000, you're saving money in my wages, and I'm getting a bit to go. And they were like, no, we're not giving you anything. And I was like, right, well, I'm not going then. Like, you're not getting a penny for this. Which was down to my pig-headedness at the time, sort of was to my detriment. And then it got to just before the start of the season, and I was like, oh God, I'm still here. And I was starting to get extradited, like pushed away for the first team. And
So you weren't training with the kind of, yeah.
I was then, it was it was getting to the stage where it was like, right, if I'm not at a team, I'm going to struggle to get anywhere. At that time, I was just wanting to play, and I didn't think I could get a loan move, but I wanted to be at a team. I didn't want to be on loan. And I went to Bristol Rovers, and it was one of the worst moves I could have done. And it was like, mistake.
a permanent move.
Yeah,
Right.
permanent move. I'd been told a load of bullshit. This is what we're going to do, and been sold a dream. I get there on the first day, and I'm like, where's all the stuff you... Oh, no, we couldn't do it. And you're like, oh fuck, I've just signed 2 years here.
Yeah.
And I hated it. And that first year was one of the first years that I can remember really feeling depression sinking in. I didn't settle one bit in Bristol. I hated it.
You didn't know anyone at the club or have any
No,
allies there?
didn't know anybody.
No.
Didn't have a goalie coach to start with. Then in my first game, again, politics of football, the goalkeeper that had just been released was a Bristol Rovers fan, a lad called Ryan Clark. I know Clarky well, but and Clarky had been released, and I'd been brought in to replace him. My first pre-season game, I run out, boo!
Oh no!
And I was like,
Oh god!
oh, this is a good start.
Oh no!
Yeah, and that didn't go well that year.
And what's sort of going on in your life outside of football? You got you got a partner. You said you had a big house. You got any sort of people around you at this point?
I mean, all I had down south was that group of friends I'd made at Coventry.
Yeah.
They looked after me. Like I said, George and Andy Harvey, one of the kit men as well. They looked after me. They made sure that I wasn't being too stupid. But then when I left that and I moved down to Bristol, I was sort of on my own. I had a partner at the time, but that didn't last for long. But yeah, I remember the manager at the time that signed me, he got sacked not long after I joined. And then one of the players at the time, we ended up getting him to become the manager, a guy called Paul Trollope. He's now at Luton as one of the coaches. And Troll's got the job, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy life or football then. And I remember on a Sunday just being like, I'm done. And I went in and said to him, I was like, I'm done. I think I want to just finish football and just go home.
So why has it got so bad? Just it was the setup, the environment,
just everything. I wasn't enjoying life, never mind football. You know, I mean, a little snippet from my time at Bristol Rovers. There's a stand behind one of the goals, the Bass stand it was called, and that's where the sort of loyal fans are. And they do a Man of the Match award, and apparently online they'd come up with this thing because they hated me. They'd come up with this thing online to vote me for Man of the Match. So you would go up there to that stand, you know, in the pub area, and you'd stand on a stool and they would all ask you questions and stuff. And they wanted to do that to get me up there to just abuse me.
What?
Yeah, this is my own fans.
Jesus Christ.
And I remember coming off the pitch and I'd got Man of the Match. And they were like, oh, you... And I went, give me that. Grabbed a bottle of champagne and went, I'm not going up there. I just knew what was going on.
God.
And you think that was because of the guy you replaced, or was it because of your performances?
Probably a bit. I mean, I don't think I performed very well.
But the atmosphere of the club or the ethos, it's not conducive for performing well by the sounds of it.
I still don't like Bristol to this day.
Yeah, right.
I think they're all arseholes.
Yeah.
You know, I just think Bristol in itself is, you know, they're in their own little world down there. And if you're not from that part, then I just didn't feel very welcome.
When you signed for Bristol, were you on your own? Did you have an agent, or did you have a team of people that helped with your decisions, or were you?
There's another mental story with that. Obviously, I told you Doncaster tried to buy me.
Yeah.
I had an agent at the time. I then told the manager, look, I'm trying to get a payoff here. I want to join you, but I need to get some money from them because I've got a year and a bit left. And he was good with it. He's like, okay, as long as I've got your word. I went, you've got my word. And then he phoned me like 3 weeks later and he's like, who's your agent? I said the guy's name. And he went, I think you need to switch agents because he's just touted 3 more goalkeepers to me.
What?
In front of you. So it was like, I mean, this is the shit that goes on in football.
God.
It's mental.
You get no idea as a fan, but you know,
it's
no
mental.
idea what happens.
It's mental. So this is just constantly happening throughout your football career. You know, you just think it's quite normal, then you come out of football and you think, it's so fucked up.
From the people that you still know in the game, do you think it's still the same, or is it any worse, or has it gotten any better, more regulations in place, or do you think it's...
I think now it's a bit better. I think it's a bit better now. I think, yeah, there's some really good agents out there, some really good agents who genuinely give a fuck about the players that they represent, and they want what's best for them. And I think that's what your job is as an agent. You know, whereas this twat that I had came out of investment banking and went into... He was just wanting to make money. Yeah. He didn't give a shit about me.
But was there any investment in the welfare of the players? Because you've gone from Coventry, you've gone to Bristol, you're on your own effectively, aren't you? You know, you're not playing, you don't feel welcome. There's nothing.
Nobody gives a shit about you. No. And I can only talk for lower league.
Yeah.
That was my reality. No one gives a shit about you. You know.
It's not exactly the sort of environment you want to put kids into, is it? You know, it's...
If I had a son, I would hate for him to be a footballer.
Yeah.
I would fucking hate it.
Yeah.
I'd be able to help him so much because of what I've went through, but you've also got to let your kids make their own pathways.
Yeah. But you... does sound like a horrible kind of time. I mean, you touch on depression there. So, you know, would you say, you know... Was that sort of the first time you'd experienced it, or
at the time I didn't think it? You know, at the time I was just low. You know, I didn't really enjoy. Like I said, I wasn't really enjoying my life. You know, just being. I was away from my group of friends in the Midlands. I was at this place I didn't want to be. I had another year and a bit to go on my contract, and I was just like, for what? For money? Like, I don't want to do this. And I told you, and I said to the manager, I don't want to do this. Just, I'm happy for you to rip my contract up. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. Blah, 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 we'll help you. I got fucking no help whatsoever. And then
Did they give you any assurances or pathway into the team? Or
I mean, I was playing every week.
Oh, you were playing?
Yeah, I was playing every week.
Okay.
But then, I mean, the assurance that I got was my second season in the pre-season. I had a really good pre-season. I felt like, right, let's attack this and let's have a really good season. I turned my negative energy, I turned it to be quite positive. And before a pre-season game, I walked out and I seen this goalkeeper who was from Bristol City walking around with one of the chief execs, and I went, well, that's my fucking career done here. Like, I knew they were going to sign him.
Right.
So that was it. And then I went on loan that season to Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
Done really well, really enjoyed it. It was just what I needed. It's old school. There was no superstars. You know, we played in Gay Meadow, which was a fucking bog. You know, Hewingdon's in better standard than this. and that, no word of a lie, because it was right next to the river and it would always flood.
Right.
It was horrendous. I actually had to get rugby studs because you just kept slipping. But I loved it. The training ground was shit. It was all porta cabins. Even the buses that you got going to like away trips. I mean, usually you get really good buses. They've got kitchens and all the rest of it. And back then, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Leather seats, fucking hell. And then Shrewsbury, it went back to just being fucking normal. It was an old school bus. Sometimes it didn't even have a fucking toilet on it. Yeah. You know, you're doing a 6-hour journey in this bus and you're having to fucking wait until you get to the services. But stuff like that, it got stripped right back and I fucking loved it.
Back to basics.
Oh, I loved it, and we done really well. We overperformed. I helped them get to the playoff final. And
Where was
that was going to be the first one at the new Wembley.
Oh, yeah.
And who did they end up playing? Bristol Rovers, who I was on loan from. And they wouldn't let me play.
My.
So, yeah. So ups and downs, it was like...
Did you go to the fixture? Or,
I was there. I was there supporting. Obviously, wanted them to fucking smash them, but they got beat. And at the time, I was gutted, but I was also like, well, I've got a promotion bonus for Bristol Rovers, my contract anyway, so every cloud and all that.
Yeah.
But and I'd already signed a contract with Wycombe Wanderers at the time, so
how did that come about? Did someone...
Paul Lambert was the manager,
right? And
I knew a player that was at Wycombe called Stephen Oakes.
Yeah, remember.
Yeah.
I knew Oakesy well, and Lambert knew that we knew each other because we spoke after we played, and he'd said to him, I want him to sign, so get on to him. So Oakesy had been like, the manager wants you to sign.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. Paul Lambert's a Celtic legend. I'm like,
yeah, cool.
I'll fucking sign for him.
Yeah.
Happily. And that was that. Went down to meet him and Steve Hayes and that, and I just felt, at that time I was wanting to just enjoy it, really enjoy it and feel welcome and feel like I was wanted.
Yeah.
I was really wanted, you know, and they gave me a 3-year contract and I was just like, right, that gives me enough time to like really enjoy this and sort of try and set roots. And because I'd moved, I think in my whole career down here I'd moved house like 19, 20 times.
So you were looking for some stability.
I was just considering I'd lived in the same house in Glasgow for 23 years or whatever it was, and then
unbelievable.
In the past, what would that be, 4 years I think I had 1, 2, 3, 4, five house moves.
Yeah.
So it was very unsettling.
And did it feel, coming to as someone that's been to watch a few games, I've lived in the area for 19 years, I think it has to be as a fan, someone that lives locally, one of the friendliest football clubs I've ever been to. Did you feel like, as a player there, or did you feel like you'd come to a kind of friendly environment? And
it was.
Have the experiences of Bristol? It
was. I mean, I think that's the thing with Wycombe. It's a bit too friendly and too quiet at times for a football environment. Yeah. But you know, that's what it is, and just got to accept that. You know, it's a family club. Yeah, and they push that really big, and you know that's what they want to be. Yeah. So that's absolutely fine. But I just really enjoyed it. I felt at home in a way. Sounds weird, sounds cliche, but I felt I can actually really enjoy this here. You know, I had a goalie coach, I had a good training ground, training facilities are really good. I'd met some really nice people, some good new players had joined at the same time as me. And I was like, all right, this could go well. And then, you know, September, I had a freak training ground accident.
I read about that as well.
Yeah, I had a fractured dislocation in my ankle. I was breaking in a new pair of Predators, and it was the new Predators that had the bladed stud.
Yeah.
It wasn't blades, it was a bladed stud. So it was meant to be a hybrid. And the grass was dry, and I went to dive, and I just heard snap crunch.
Oh, God.
And I looked down and my foot was pointing the other way, and I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Beginning of the season, like it happened before at Albion Rovers as well. Was that when you got your injury at the beginning of the season as well, didn't you?
That was pre-season, yeah.
Pre-season,
So this was in September, so the season had started.
Okay.
And yeah, that was me, the whole season. I was done. So it was like, right. So that was difficult.
Like
and I hadn't moved down. I was living in the Midlands at the time, so I was commuting.
Right.
And I was like, well, and I was looking to move down, and I was like, well, I may as well stay around my sort of circle, if you like.
How did the club react? Were they supportive? Because I am always fascinated what happens in those moments. Because again, that doesn't indicate to me you're injury prone. Because that's not like you're
a muscle injury.
Yeah, you're not made of glass. It's that's a bone injury. That's
every one of my injuries I've had a lot are all like that. Like, all of my injuries have needed surgery. So it's like I've never had a soft tissue injury in my career that stopped me playing, and that was difficult as well. But I mean, the club, I don't really know what's expected. Paul Lambert was there that night in hospital with me, and I obviously got rushed straight to hospital and had surgery that day. He was there that night. The players came and supported me. Came and saw me. But again, football moves very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not a business on sentiment.
Yeah.
They came, they saw I was all right. Obviously private medical, so you sort of go and see, supposedly go and see the best people. I think the guy I went to see was fucking Stevie Wonder. So usually you go and see a sports specific person, whereas the person that I went to see was someone who dealt with just general everyday people. So for him, when he done my operation, it was just so that I could then walk normally and do it. But going back to full-time professional sport, I had to go in the following year to get another surgery to correct the mess he had made. So yeah, and that was tough because we actually got promoted the next season. That was when Peter Taylor came in.
Yeah.
And 2008-9, and it was one of my best seasons. I think that year I made the PFA Team of the Year. We were like 9 points clear at Christmas. We were flying.
Yeah.
Like it was just, and when you're winning it, papers over every crack, right?
Yeah.
So it was just superb. Great dressing room, great camaraderie. Like nothing could go wrong really. And then it got to about January time, and I was walking my dog, and I just couldn't even walk. I lived in Presswood. And I was in one of the farmers' fields, and I just had to sit down for like half an hour. And I was like, this isn't good. Didn't tell the club, sort of kept playing, taking painkillers and all of this. And then, my performances started to slip because I was struggling to walk, never mind play football. And then had to go and get surgery, and I think I ended up going on St Paddy's Day. Had to get another ankle operation. But we got promotion that on the last day of the season.
I was there.
And our game had finished. Yeah. We got beat off Notts County at home.
Yes, yeah, and I think I was at that game.
And Bury were playing somebody, and they just had to get one more goal, and they'd beat us. And if we went into the playoffs, we would never have won because we were on such a bad run.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got over the line, and it was like, right, amazing.
Yeah.
I just had it in my head to get fit for the next season. So yeah, massive ups, massive downs in the one season. But again, like I said at the very start, I realised early on that that's what I'd signed up for, and that's what I've got to accept. And then again, the next season, there's no two seasons will ever be the same in football as a player or as anybody that's involved, even as a fan. So yeah, the next season again didn't go great. We get promoted, and
this is Div 1, isn't it?
Yeah, League One this was, and Steve Hayes, the owner, had fell out with Peter Taylor about budgets, so we hadn't signed anyone, and then it was just shit show from day one, and we get I think we get one of the worst points tallies in League One history. You know, so that was a fucking horrendous season.
Yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
And then my contract was up, and at the end of that season, I had an elbow injury that needed a operation, and I was like, fuck.
It sounds like you've been blighted with lots of bad luck along
Yeah, just a bit of bone had broke off.
Yeah.
So, and I remember the day I found it, we played Brentford at home. It was when they had Chesney in goal on loan for the season.
Yeah.
And we beat them 1-0 at Adams Park. But that day I'd woke up and I couldn't see my elbow. So I was hiding this for the physios and everybody in the team, and wasn't telling everyone, and you think you're doing the right thing for the club. But then your performances start slipping for this. It's like catch-22. And then the club don't give a shit that you've been going through that pain for them. You just get dropped.
Yeah.
You know, so then there was the next surgery for that. Got released and then moved on to Wrexham. That's another funny one. Dean Saunders had been trying to get me all summer, and I was like, I didn't want to go down to the conference. Eventually I went there, played the first 9-10 games, and they had a young Welsh under-21 international, Chris Maxwell, and I think he'd played some games with Wales and some qualifiers. Everton, Spurs had sent into Wrexham, we want to watch him play. So the club's like, we've got to play him, there's a chance we could sell him. So the 4 or 5 games he was meant to come in for turned out to be 15, and then it got to Christmas time and I was like, I ain't staying here. And luckily Crawley, they took my contract over, so I got to move back down to here, because at the time I'd met my children's mother who lived in High Wycombe.
I was going to ask, so what's going on in life at the moment? Because I'm assuming that season in Wycombe you're thinking I can get some roots here.
Yeah.
You know, you're in Presswood.
Yeah.
You know, so what's happening in life?
Well, I'd met my ex at the time, well, my ex now, but I'd met her, and, you know, she had a little daughter at the time, just under a year old, and I'd went from being the most single person to like this guy who's now took on somebody else's child as his own, and it was like, what the fuck has happened in my life here? Everything that I'd sort of slaughtered anyone else for it, I've just went and done it myself. So I'd started to settle a bit here, and, you know, and so to move back was a good thing. And then there was a little car school around here for Crawley, so it was perfect. We just drove in with each other. And that was the best dressing room I'd ever been in my whole life.
Crawley Town was?
It was fucking unbelievable. To the point where we would get in there so early because we didn't want to miss anything.
Really?
Something would happen every single day, and you're just like, to the point one of the lads followed an ambulance down the M25 because we were like, we don't want to be late. We're like, you know, you can go to jail for this. He's like, I'll take the risk.
Amazing.
Was that in part? Was that due to the camaraderie of the team spirit, or was it the management, or what caused that? It
wasn't the management, because it was Steve Evans.
Right.
And Steve one-on-one's good as gold. But he's a fucking nightmare. Oh, he's carnage. He is carnage. So it was nothing to do with him.
Right.
Not a lie. He creates that atmosphere of, he ends up making it's us versus him, if you like.
Yeah.
So we sort of stuck together even more. But it was amazing. It was just amazing. It was just, and we were winning every game, right? I think at that point we went on to win the conference and record points. You know, we'd played Man United in the FA Cup 5th round at Old Trafford. We get beat 1-0.
Remember?
Yeah.
And it was just like, it was such a good year.
Did you play in goal that game?
No, I was on the bench because it was a month after I joined.
Right.
So unfortunately I hadn't made my way into the team yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just brilliant. And the next season went just as good. You know, we got promotion from League 2 into League 1. And then Steve went to Rotherham. And I was one of the first ones that says, I will never play for him again. And then he phoned me and told me how much he was offering me, and I was like, fuck, I've got to go and speak to him. Because at this point, my ex was pregnant. So I was like, fuck, I've got to actually be a real adult here now. And
right. But by the way, I mean, obviously, if you don't mind me saying, you've gone from obviously Coventry, you know, a sort of a project at Wycombe that went well. Was there a side of you where you're like, hold on, I'm going... Did you feel like... How did you feel in yourself at that time where you're like, I've got to kind of go down to the, you had, obviously you were taking steps back.
That's what I had to accept, going to Wrexham.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well again at Wrexham. I didn't really hit the ground running there. And there was a lot of that. It was like, right, if I'm coming down here, I can't be here for long, or this is my level then.
Yeah.
I had to go there to bounce back to sort of make have a new career, if you like. And that's luckily that's fortunately the way it went, because obviously we got back-to-back promotions, and then I was a League One goalkeeper. But then Steve said to me, do you want to come to Rotherham, who had just opened a new stadium?
And they were, I guess they would have been...
They were League Two.
Yeah.
So I was then going to stay in League Two. But just in that point in itself, again, just to say, obviously the amount of parents who've got kids that want to play football, etc. That last season, I was in for a new contract. February 1st of February, I was playing really well, doing really well. So they're like, we're going to give you a new deal. The night before my birthday, we played Cheltenham, and it was a sort of top of the table clash. And in the first 30 minutes, I had a challenge which ruptured my posterior cruciate ligament. And I finished the game, right? And the next day I woke up, couldn't see my kneecap, couldn't straighten my leg, and I was like, something's really bad here. And then the club just wiped the contract away. Oh, we can't give you a contract, you're injured now. And I'm like, well, I was injured playing for your fucking club. So that was just totally wiped. Yeah. And it was like, what the fuck am I going to do here? I've got a missus that's pregnant, another child, and I'm out of contract, and I've got a ruptured knee ligament.
How old were you at this stage, Scott? Do you remember?
When was this? 2011, that would have been. So 30 years old. So that, again, created all sorts of anxiety issues and just issues that I would never speak to anyone about. Just keep myself.
But I guess it's like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, isn't it? It's like all of a sudden, you feel like brilliant, things are in the right direction, settling, kid on the way, wow, and then out of nowhere,
just a weird challenge, and it's all changed. And then, but then I'd ruptured that ligament, and for some strange fucking reason, this knee specialist that I'd been sent to, again, don't know who fucking gave him his sort of diplomas and degrees, etc. But after 6 weeks and new MRI scans, he cleared me to train. So I was like, fucking brilliant. Like, in my head, I was thinking, people will at least see me on the bench.
Yeah, but sorry to interrupt, but that's not a 6-week injury.
No, far from it. Far from it. My posterior cruciate, PCL, that was still ruptured.
I mean, that is 6 months, surely.
Minimum, yeah. So I was training every day, and I was landing on it, and I was getting this fucking stabbing pain, and I've got a high pain threshold, so I was having to go through all of this every day, and then I was on the bench, and then I got to the last game of the season, and the owner, who was this dodgy guy, putting loads of money into it, Steve had left to go to Rotherham, and he pulled me, and he's like, I know you're out of contract, but I need you to play this game, we need to win. And it was Accrington Stanley away. We need to win, and I want you to play, I trust you to go in. And I was like, wait a minute, fucking you pulled a contract for me, and now you want me to do this for you? And they're like, look, I'm going to look after you, you've got my word. And I've always taken people for their word. So after the game, I played really well, and we won 1-0, we got promoted.
With no kneecap.
With, still a ruptured cruciate ligament in my knee.
Yeah.
And, he's there saying, I'm going to weigh you in, I'm going to look after you. So I was like, perfect. And I knew at that point I was at my sort of peak of earnings, potentially. So I was like, I've got to make the most of this. And then they came back and they offered me a year on like a little bit more money, and I was just like, you fucking bastards. So then I went to speak to Steve, and I knew what Steve was like, so I took my ex at the time, who was heavily pregnant, so he couldn't really be a bastard.
That's a smart move.
Right. And he's like that, do you want to go and get, and I was like, no, she'll stay here, and she's a big part of this, pregnant and blah blah blah. So I went, all right, you're going to have to offer me big because, look, she's pregnant. We've got a baby on the way and you want me to move and you've blah. And he's like, yeah, I'll look after you. And he did.
Yeah.
You know, the deal was, although I knew that I wasn't going to enjoy working with him, I couldn't knock it back because I had a family and there was nothing else really at that point. So I was always under the thing as well in football. If something's there and you're happy with it, you take it. You don't wait for something maybe better because it will only get worse.
Especially with the environment he fostered at Crawley Town, you know, maybe you'd replicate that there.
Well, that's it. And so went there and, you know, again, first season was relatively good. And did I have a... No. I had another surgery. Yeah. It was it that year? I'm trying. I've too many concussions.
I'm just trying to think as well though, because actually it almost sounds like the guy who bodged your diagnosis on the ligament. Actually, it almost kind of sounds if he'd done it properly, you may have been out. You wouldn't have had, you know. So it was almost.
Well, it's funny because I've went to do a medical at Rotherham, and the physios went, we're going to, like, lower league medicals are the physio looks at your body and does a few tests on you, you know, flexibilities and everything else. This time they were sending me to hospital to get x-rays and this and that, and I was like, shit. And I'd said to him, obviously, about my knee, and he's like, well, we'll deal with it. Yeah. And they actually said to me, your posterior cruciate's still repairing. It's not fully repaired at all. And I was like, fuck. So luckily Rotherham were like, get onto Crawley, get them to take you to this specialist, blah, blah, blah. He'll look after you and, you know, we'll get the contract signed. So I was like, whatever. And I went to a guy, one of the best in London, a guy called Andy Williams at the time, and he was giving me injections and everything, and then eventually it helped it, and I was ready for the first day of pre-season.
Oh, amazing.
Must have been such a relief.
Oh my God, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then the first season we got promoted again, and my daughter was born, and you know, it was really good times, but that was when the peak of my depression started to get there. I just signed one of my best contracts, and that whole summer I couldn't sleep. Just worried. I was anxious about everything. The anxiety that was in me was just fucking crippling. Was
this because your daughter was on the way, or
a lot of that? Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of that. I think obviously I had met my ex and she had a child and that, but I always knew that she wasn't my child. So you know, if we split up, I was just on my own again. But now it was like, oh shit, I've got a family now. I need to support them and do everything. So that pressure, I think a lot of men feel that.
Yeah. And do you think the harsh nature of football just was starting to take its toll? Just, you know, because, you know, you've been in so many different environments over a really short period of time. Do you think that also was just mounting up?
I think without realising it does. It'd be stupid to say that it doesn't affect you in some sort of way. Of course it does. You become hardened to it in a way where it's just normality. But it's not. It's horrendous.
But it also sounds like maybe this sort of anxiety and depression wasn't necessarily football baked. It sounds like it was sort of what football wasn't doing was maybe giving you the security or the environment you then wanted. That then you could sort of get the life you wanted outside of football, or is that?
I think there was a lot of factors within it.
Yeah.
I think the extreme highs and to the extreme lows is a massive part of it, and hence why I speak to young kids now. I always tell them, you know, you need to be middle. You know, you need to just coast along. Yeah. Don't get too high with the highs, don't get too lows with the lows. Just try and be in between and enjoy it. Be present now. Whereas I was extremely high and extremely low, and that really... And then there was obviously other factors. You know, my mum was really unwell at the time, and I went up to see her, and she ended up with sepsis, and she nearly died in front of me, and it was like, fuck. You know, real life hits you a bit. Yeah. So, and that started worrying me about death with my parents. And so there's all these things, and bear in mind, I'm not fucking speaking to MD about this. You know, just sitting on my fucking shoulders.
That wasn't something you could bring up in the dressing room at the time, right?
No. The funny thing is that I try to open up to a couple of people, but some people just can't, deal with it. They might have other shit in their life. And the people that I opened up to, didn't really say the right things, and it made me go even more in my shell. And I was like, right, I can't fucking speak to anyone. But then the second season at Rotherham, again, studs caught in the ground, popped my cartilage. End up having to go in, get an operation. Then I think the first 3 weeks back from that, the club make us train on an indoor hall in Rotherham. It was an old school, wooden floorboards, mats in front of it because it was frozen outside. And I said, somebody's going to get injured. I just got on with it. Fucking ass. Elbow dropped to the floor, big chunk of bone came off my elbow. So that was another 3 months. And it was like, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And you're driving, so again, when you're injured as well, bear in mind that training is a lot harder. So I was living in the Midlands, and I'd done a lot of commuting, which didn't help because I had too much time on my own. And so I'd just started a degree as well. So I'd get up at 5, I would do some studying, I'd have the baby, I'd have Scarlett, I'd then take the dogs a walk, put the baby back into bed with her mum. I'd then get in a car, I'd drive 2 hours to Rotherham. I'd meet the sports scientist at the gym. We'd do a gym session at 8 o'clock. You'd then go back, you'd get treatment, you'd do another session, then there'd be a swimming session at 3 o'clock. So you were just fucked every day. And then I had to drive another 2 hours home.
I mean, it's intense enough having young kids, but this isn't manageable.
Oh, it was bonkers. I mean, the times that I would have to pull into I know services like the back of my hand. And I'd have to pull in just to have a nap because I'd nearly be crashing into people. It was scary and stupid at times, but it was just normal life for me. So I had those 2, and then got released, moved to Crewe Alexandra. Really bad move again. Hate that club.
Why did you get released? Because of your injuries, or was it just end of the contract?
Well, again, that second season, again, I had the injury.
Right.
The goalkeeper, a guy called Adam Collin, came in and had the season of his fucking life.
Brilliant.
To the point where we played Leyton Orient in the playoff final, and he was the penalty hero. He saved the penalty to get us promoted.
Yeah.
So, I mean, fair play to him. He took his chance and he was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting there going, you bastard. Fuck up.
God.
I'm not going to sit and pretend that I was one of these guys going, I'm really happy for him.
Yeah.
I would be sitting going, I hope you fuck up.
Yeah.
Because I need to get back in here. And I know that's the only way I'll get back in.
Yeah. You mentioned you started the degree. Was this the plan B kicking in at this point?
Well, it was, I'd done a sports science degree. And it was just torture. Because the manager at the time that I had, Steve Evans, he didn't want me to do it.
Right.
He's like, nah, it'll take your mind off football, sort of thing.
Yeah, I've got a life after this, mate. Thank you very
exactly.
Much. Yeah.
So I'm thinking that way, and you've got a manager that's making it difficult because any open day or any day I had to be, it was through Manchester Met, and any sort of open day, he would just bring us in.
Right.
So I couldn't do it. And it was like...
It sounds like you've had some real pieces of work to deal with.
But this is normal, and I guarantee you, I've not had the worst of it.
Really?
So this is not anything but normal to people my age that have went through their career.
But I mean, I'm being
really
honest.
Normal.
I'm being honest. I mean, so my brother was he never got as far as you in the sport, but he got pretty big in tennis. And obviously, again, you have different stories, but I mean, and there's different mental challenges with tennis because it's a solo sport, so it's a different game. But it just makes me think, because like we said before we started recording, I'm driving my son to London fixtures, St Albans, Hatfield, which for a 10-year-old. Is ridiculous, and there's a lot of parents there, who you can see some of them are dreaming of what if. We've got friends nearby, for example, who are playing a serious level. I hope she doesn't mind me saying, but a good friend of mine, her son has just been at 10, which sounds ridiculous, has been released from Oxford United. And this is starting to make me think, hold on a second. And we did a podcast where I was talking, because what my parents did after I think my brother, because he was so driven, they didn't want it for me. They just said, look, just go and have a crack, go and play every sport, go and do everything. But I can feel, even though I'm realistic, that, you know, I know what the odds are. I think there's an element of every parent where you're like, well, you know, if he trains enough, and obviously every kid wants to be a footballer, they don't hear this stuff. And I was actually going to suggest that the coach, I suppose I should give a shout out to Beaconsfield Rams, but I actually was saying, you know, maybe your lad should listen to it. I'm not sure he should. And nothing against you, but it's the reality of football.
Yeah.
Do we really want to get our kids into this? You know, because there's not many Wayne Rooney stories out there, you know.
But again, in saying that, I might be coming across here in a light where it sounds really negative. I had so many fucking positives.
True.
So many positives, like all those days in the dressing room where I absolutely loved every second of it. You know, going to like stadiums and, you know, 40,000 people there and people chanting your name, and then you're making saves, you're getting man of the match, and you get so many good memories. I'm telling you a lot of the bad stuff here, but there is as many good. Yeah. If not more. Okay, but we are designed to, you know, our brains are like Velcro to the negative stuff. Yeah, and in football there's so much of it. And as much as I'm saying there's arseholes in every industry, and there's really, really good people. Like, for instance, at the start I said about, you know, Kenny McDowell, St Eric Black at Coventry. Without that, I don't know if I'd be here. So there's really good people who genuinely want good for you, and there are people still in the game that are like that. A lot of my friends now are becoming managers who I played with. They're just good people. You know, you've got Blooms at Wickham, not really going great for him at the minute, but a fucking good guy.
He seems it, really does.
And what I try and explain to people is that you get people in football who have got high power positions. The really good ones will look at footballers as human beings. Yeah. The other ones, you're just a commodity. You're just cannon fodder. I'm going to get what I can get out of you, and then when I can't get anything, I don't give a shit what happens to you. Whereas the good people like Blooms, you get Russell Martin at Southampton now, Mike Williamson's at MK Dons. One of my best mates, Moose, John Messinho, who's at Portsmouth, they give a shit about each individual. You know, they care. They don't, if a player's not in their plans, they don't make it horrible for them. They still make it, they want that player to come in and train and do their best, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when you might need them. So it's changing even more so now. So I'm looking at it from a point of view where academies and stuff probably just started up when I was in the game and leaving the game. So I think they've got to evolve now. But I think you mentioned it before we started this. You know, once the fun is away from it, it can't be a job at fucking 10 years old. Yeah, it's just got to be fun and enjoyable, and be allowed. If they're not allowed to make mistakes and just go out and try stuff, then what is the fucking point?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
But I guess the message that we want to give to kids is you've got to navigate it, haven't you? It sounds like you've got to spot the right opportunities. Accept, you know, you're going to make some mistakes. There are people like I think
embrace the mistakes. I would say, fucking embrace them. Be thankful you're doing it, because it's the only way you'll ever try and get better. Yeah. And if you've got a good coach, they'll coach you to be better. Yeah. But again, I think now the one thing that I don't like about, I think it's just the way society's going, is I don't see, I'm not speaking for everybody here, but in a lot of footballers, when I was younger, I wanted to be a footballer because I wanted to play football. Yeah. I didn't give a shit about anything else that came with it. Because of the money that's in the game now. I don't know if it's down to that. I don't know if kids want it to be social media, if I can start a brand, or if I can do this or that. You know, the number one is not always football. Be the best footballer I can be.
Yeah.
Even in the lower leagues.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had it at Oxford with a player, I'm not going to name him, you know, and he just joined us from like non-league club, and we were like, what the fuck are you doing on social media? You're not playing for Oxford, but you're giving it the big one on social media. And his reply was, try to build my brand. To the point where we had Jamie Mackey at the time, who was fucking hilarious, and he never loses it, nicest guy in the world, and he went, no one knows who you fucking are. No one gives a shit. But I don't really see now loads and loads of drive to become the best footballer.
Absolutely.
And that's what I don't like.
But you can see it even watching our team. It doesn't look like they're enjoying themselves half the time. I mean, you're there to play a game, and I know it's different when you get to that level. But like you say, the little boy, you're there to enjoy the game, but they don't look like they're enjoying it half the time, and they're getting distracted with all the off the field stuff as well.
It's like you said, you know, Roy Keane for me, he just epitomises what a footballer should be. And I know some people don't like him, the Haaland tackle, whatever. Frankly, I'd like to think I'd done the same thing. You know, if someone tried to end my fucking career, I think I'd go and do that back. Or at least thought they might have ended my career. I think I'd lean over them and, you know. I just don't understand where that's gone in the whole game. And again, I think that's where you've got the right balance, is play fucking hard, you know, play with the right mindset, play like, you know, it is important as it is, but that doesn't mean outside of the game people have to treat people like shit.
No.
And I think I think you are right. I think social media, all of this nonsense, which, you know, we've talked about a lot, you know, I don't even think we know the implications of what that's doing for kids, especially in sport, because they're seeing these people who, you know, are sort of sportsmen but kind of influencers, and it's like it doesn't, you know, and I get it, everyone deserves their shot. Maybe it's just a different channel for them to monetize themselves. So I get what that kid's saying, but that isn't the game.
No, but that's the way it's went.
Yeah. But
again, the one thing that I don't like about academies, from my own personal experience, is I feel that back when I was younger, if you had a bit about you, the first team lads would, you know, they would be on your back, right? And they would only do it because they liked you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So and I was always told when I first joined Coventry, and I was a first team player, but I always looked at myself as, you know, I'm a younger one here, you know, I feel lucky to be here type of thing. And then if I had Steve Staunton or Richard Shaw or any of these players, you know, and they'd fucking abuse you, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember getting told the day they stop doing that is the day that you fucking worry, right? So that lived with me throughout my career, and it became the way that I was when I was older. Only up until recently, it was like at Oxford, my last club, there was a lad we had on loan, and he came in, belly big bollocks. And funnily enough, the lad's name's Sam Smith, and he was on loan from Reading.
Same dude who wears all the outfits.
No, thankfully fucking no. But yeah, Sam came in, scored a lot of goals at academy level, and, you know, had a big social media presence, came in, belly big bollocks. And I fucking hated it, so I was on his back from day one. Not in a horrendous way, you know. I would always say to him, I'll stay out late with you. I don't see you working on your finishing. You've not fucking scored a goal. How do you expect to score goals? And I'd just be on his case. During shooting practice, he would miss, and it would become his shot, and I'd just lie down, and he would miss, and I'd just be in his head. And then I went to watch Reading play Wickham at Adams Park not long ago, and Reading actually won, and Sam played, and he played really well. And I saw him after the game. I went down and I saw him, and he came up to me and he said to me, that fucking season has actually made me a better player.
Yeah.
He went, I appreciate now everything that you and the other older boys were doing to me. He's like, at the time, I thought I was it.
Yeah.
But he actually knows why. He knows now, and he's like, and I'm now looking at players thinking, fuck, you're who I was.
Yeah.
I need to try and help you get away from that
Pay it
now.
forward again, yeah.
So I just hope that through players in my era that are now all retiring and finishing up, I just hope that old school values does not slip away from football. You know, I just hope that some people still... Because again, my point I was making was academies, they sort of strip character out of players from a young age. They don't want them to be loud and chirpy, but whereas back then, if you were loud and chirpy, you know what I mean? Like, David Bentley was a classic at Arsenal.
Absolutely.
Like, when he got into the first team, I remember him telling a story, he sat down and Vieira came up and went, get up, and he was like, nah, mate, I'm sitting here. And Vieira went and moved. And it's like, he said, Vieira kicked the shit out of me for 6 months in every training session because of that. But he's like, back then, if you had a bit about you, it was good. You know, you were going to, they would be like, he's got something about him.
Yeah.
I see the same profile in every young player now.
Yeah.
Scared to like be themselves, conform to like a fucking formation, if you like.
Yeah.
You fit into that. You're a robot in that.
Yeah.
And I don't like that. I don't think, and I think that's why a lot of these lads at 18 are just like, I've fucking had enough. I've had enough of this. I don't enjoy it.
Some of them are getting paid an absolute fortune at that age as well, aren't they? You know, but you can see watching the games on TV. It's not. This doesn't seem to be the same as it used to be. You don't seem to have the same characters. You talk about Roy Keane, Mark Hughes. You don't seem to have those characters in the game.
But what's really interesting is it sounds that within the game, your mental strength was unbelievable, as in your ability to handle dressing rooms, banter, which obviously could break a lot of more fragile.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the goalkeeper I played with at Wickham was an Aussie lad called Jamie Young. He's moved back to Australia now, and he's on his way to becoming a doctor. Very, very smart individual, and we still keep in touch now. And we laugh and joke about stuff because you know me and him were the exact same. We just butted heads every single day. But he done a podcast and he sent me the clip. And he basically said in the podcast that he's never met a more alpha male than me. So through that whole period, I felt that I had to be that.
Yeah,
right.
You know, it was like, I spoke about it in a podcast I done, like I was constantly changing masks. When I got into football, I was this fucking my life. Nobody would think anything was wrong in my life. I was the main man. I was the life and soul of a dressing room and this, that, the other. As soon as I left, fucking broken.
Really?
You know, and a different mask would come on. But so like you said, the mental strength there, I think there was a good amount of times where I was just putting it on.
Yeah, okay. Why do you think you felt you had to put it on? I mean, I guess it must
because of the environment
and
the industry.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lad that I played with, Crew, who I felt that once I went through what I went through, I could then sort of see it in certain people. I could see differences in their characters and the way they're behaving, and I would pull them one-on-one and ask them if they're okay.
Right.
And there was one lad at Crew that I saw, and it ended up he had really bad anxiety, like really bad. It was crippling for him.
Because of the football, or
yeah, football and a few things outside. And he was a really good player. And he left and he went to a new club, and he said to me, I thought it was going to be better. I thought, you know, things were going to change, etc. And it didn't. And I said to him, I think you've just signed a 2-year contract, you're on good money. I think you should go and speak to the manager and just tell him, and you know, you want a little bit of help. And the manager turned around and said to him, can't play you now, I can't trust you.
You're joking.
Oh.
You know, and that was probably about 2014, 15.
And
So we've got all this shit going on about mental health, and you know, we're doing this, we're doing that. There's still people that don't give a fuck about it in football. You know, they'll say the buzzwords and they'll say the things for the press, but deep down, you're just cannon fodder. Especially low league, you're just cannon fodder.
So if you don't mind just focusing on your situation, because obviously what it sounds as well like is you started to spot other players who were suffering, which is obviously really, really admirable. But I guess it sounds like you didn't get that. So sort of what if it's too personal, too direct, I apologise. But sort of what you know, for someone who hasn't, dealt with anxiety, you know, various things, but I wouldn't say I've ever dealt with depression, because I do think they're two very different things. Again, not an expert, but, you know, what sort of, could you explain a little bit sort of how you felt at those times? You know, you said like you were having to put this mask on, you know, and obviously I guess you've got kids, so you've got people who are depending on you. I mean, I have to say I can really empathise. It sounds tough, especially with such, you know, insecurity all the time of where's your next club?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, the worst of it, you know, I couldn't stop thinking about just ending it.
So
like I said, I was commuting loads, you know, because I didn't want my family to move. I didn't want to always move them about, etc. And so I tried to just, and I think I've yearned for a base,
right.
You know, a grounding and just some roots. My whole career down here, I think I was just desperate for that and never got it really. And yeah, again, with too much commuting on my own, there was too much time on my own, and you know, the amount of times that I'd have to pull in and stop because all I could think about in the car was just driving off the motorway or just driving into the central reservation, and it was all I was thinking of. There would be journeys where I would leave the house and I would be pulling off the motorway, and all I've thought about was, I want to just fucking end this now. Just drive off the fucking motorway. Or just, and at times then but then it's like, I don't know, I read into everything loads. I was thinking, did I really want to do it, or was I just sort of trying to get myself to get help, or was there something going on within me to just say, you know, I don't know. But I definitely know that it just felt so painful, and it was just like, you know, at that stage you probably feel like you're doing other people a favour, you know, because I can't imagine that I was nice to live with either and be around. So it was like, but then you think, I've got fucking young kids.
Yeah.
And then I always remember I would go into services and I'd be like, I'd be really emotional about it, I'd be crying, I'd be like, fuck, I've just been thinking of fucking killing myself here. And then I'd think, how fucking selfish, I've got kids, I've got my mum, my dad, my brother, I've got a partner, I've got friends, I've got family, you know what I mean? I've got all this. What am I leaving them with? So it's difficult when you go through that. But, you know, like I said, I tried to open up to a member of staff once at a club, didn't go well. And then my ex at the time, she noticed it in me, and she said, you need to fucking go and get help here. So I was living in the Midlands at the time, and I was playing for Crewe. So I went to the doctors, and I was really scared about fucking opening up about it. And I went into the doctors, and he's like, oh, what do you do? And I says, I play football. And he's, who'd you play for? And I said, Crewe. And he went, oh, that's where I live. And I went,
oh no,
fuck.
Yeah.
And I just fucking ran out of the room.
Yeah, because...
And I was like, in my head, I'm thinking, I'm going to tell him, and then Crewe's going to know later on today.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to know. So I went back and I said to my ex at the time, oh yeah, everything's all right. Pretended that everything was okay. And then eventually the old club doctor at Wickham, a woman called Gina, it got to the stage where I'll never forget it. Obviously I said to her, when I shout, it's loud, and it can come across really aggressive with a Scottish accent. And I remember one night something happened with my youngest, Scarlett. She wasn't sleeping, and I fucking lost it. And I remember my kids looking at me with pure fear, and I was like, at that moment I went, something's got to change here.
Yeah.
And I went to see Gina, and she sat with me for about an hour. A GP to give me an hour of her day was like,
yeah.
And I went on medication for about 6 months, and then...
Did that help?
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. And I then got some help through the PFA to speak to a counsellor, which I felt was totally useless. Because I genuinely believe that a sports person's mind is different. I just think we're wired totally differently to someone who's not had this as their profession. We're just a bit weird. And I remember just saying to this counsellor, just fucking get in my head. Tell me what I need to do. I need a solution. And then I spoke to a friend of mine who is not a doctor or anything. And I'll never forget the first conversation I said to him. He went, "What's up with you?" And I said, "Mate, I need to speak to somebody, but I just feel fucking really depressed." And he went, "Oh, fuck off, that's bullshit. You're not just depressed." He went, "What's the root?"
Right.
And I went, "What?" And he just got me thinking about it totally differently. And he went, "Nah, there's other things that have happened. You don't just get depressed, Scott." And I was like, fuck. And that was it. And then I started getting into it more. And then, yeah, after about 6 months, I said to Gina, I went, "I'm not taking another tablet. I'm good." So I guess now it's just knowing we all get low at times. But if I get that low, I know I need to go and do a workout or socialise or, do something.
And did you start to process what the route might have been? Was there a light bulb moment where it was kind of, okay, that's sort of maybe this is what's caused it?
I think there was just loads that had went on in the space of a year. I had two house moves. Found out my ex was pregnant. I had that injury, my posterior cruciate. My mum nearly died in front of me. My career I didn't know where I was going, where I was going to be living. There was so much that went on in the space of a year that I just think I fell off a cliff.
Okay. So was it relatively isolated to that year, or is it still something you manage? Or
like I said to you before, I think it started on early in my career, the depression thing, but again, you don't realise what it is at the time. You just... And it might not be depression, it might just be feeling really low.
Really low, yeah.
Because of bad performance, bad result, whatever it is, the lows in football, it might be to do with that. But I just know that it was a little bit different when I was at Bristol because I just wasn't enjoying my life.
Yeah.
Whereas at other times you're feeling low, it's just because of your performance.
Yeah.
In a couple of days you're all right. But yeah. But no, listen, it's coming across really... I'm looking at your two faces here.
No.
It's coming across really bad.
I had periods of my 20s where, I like I said before we started recording, I wasn't an elite sportsman, but I went through periods where I never felt anything like it before in my life. I'd wake up like clockwork at 4 o'clock every morning. I couldn't get out of bed. I just felt this almost like compression, and I didn't want to see anyone. I was anxious. I had to take beta blockers before I saw any friends or any family. I just so anxious. I didn't know what it was. And this went on and off for a few years, and eventually, after trying loads of different stuff, I read my way out of it. I found this amazing book that kind of explained exactly what was happening, because it's mentally exhausting. You're thinking about it, you can't get it out of your head. It's like, right, I'm going to think about something else for 5 minutes, and then it's back, and it's just like a downward spiral. You can't get out of it, and then you're tired, and it's like, oh my god,
it's that fatigue.
It is. You can't get out of it, and I read this book and it explained exactly what was happening to my nervous system, exactly where it was, and it was just like, it's like a light bulb. It was like I just felt this. Oh, okay, well, at that time I didn't speak to anyone. I didn't know who to speak to. Yes, I spoke to my girlfriend, my wife now, and she didn't really understand it. And I read this book and it was there in black and white. I was like, okay, so it's not just me then.
Yeah.
And after that, it just dissipated. After a few months, it was gone. And and now I feel like I'm back to normal levels. So yes, I get nervous if I'm doing a presentation or I've got something big coming up, but not to ever the same level that I used to get back then. And, it's tough, but I didn't speak to anyone.
That moment you mentioned, that's when my phone call with Rob, my friend, a guy called Rob Blackburn, he now has set up a business that he goes in and helps. He helps footballers. He's helped loads of big footballers that you would never think.
Yeah.
From the outside you think they're probably having a great fucking life. He's helped loads of Premier League players turn their life around, because footballers, we all deal with the same issues: fear, judgment, everything that comes along with being in your career.
In a high pressure
Everybody, every footballer has got fear of being judged, imposter syndrome, all of these things. Every footballer deals with the same shit. The best ones deal with it.
Right.
I feel anyway.
Yeah. I was... Sorry to interrupt. I was watching a snippet. There's a new thing on Netflix that just caught my eye, which something about captains or something. But the snippet, when you click on a program and it gives you that sort of quick video, and it was of the Argentinian team before the World Cup final. And I literally went into like a daze for about 20 seconds because I was like, can you imagine the pressure that they must have felt. Because that match is probably the most important match in Argentinian football history.
Ronaldo, France '98.
Yeah, yeah. And I just sat there, I'm like, I couldn't handle that. Like, imagine if you're that guy who slips, makes whatever, that would just fuck with my head. Maybe I'm soft, but I couldn't get it out of my head. I'm like, how do you handle that?
But again, this is what I've come to learn. Like, you need coping mechanisms, you know, because I remember back in the day, somebody showed me this anxiety graph about between 1 and 5. And, you know, you play a football match at your best, you need to be about a 3.
Right, you need a bit of attention.
Something,
yeah.
You know, for it to mean something to you. But if it means too much, fuck you won't perform at your peak. If it doesn't mean a lot to you, you're not going to give your best, really. So you need to have some butterflies in your tummy, or it's just pointless.
Yeah.
So like before every game, I had butterflies every fucking game.
Yeah.
Every single game. I'm not going to lie. It was like that, and that's like in professional football as well. Mm-hmm. Just every football match, you're like. But the difference is, I think the difference is that for a good amount of my games, I might have been that way because I was worried about a mistake.
Yeah.
Whereas these guys, I think at the top, they'll have that anxiety, but they'll be like, oh my God, I'm fucking going to win. We're going to win here. And it's more of a positive shift. I think that's where they are, mindset-wise. It's a different mindset to where I was anyway.
Yeah, but also you obviously, like you mentioned, you had massive highs, but once you start to have a few experiences, you know, because it sounds like you had one great season, then you get injured and dropped, and some arsehole would treat you like shit. Eventually, you're just going to get into a habit loop. That's going to happen every time, right? So I can well understand why you would go into a match shitting your pants, because it's like...
It wasn't every match. Like, there'd be some games that I'd be like, I would fucking openly declare it in the dressing room, like, lads, I'm getting man of the match today.
Yeah.
And I would fucking go out and get man of the match.
Amazing.
Like, just incredible how your mindset can really play a part in a career, really.
Yeah.
And this is where, like, the guy Rob I was telling you, Rob Blackburn, his name is, fucking great guy. You know, and he's helped so many professionals now. But this is the one thing he does. Changes their mindset.
Amazing.
And the players that he's worked with, like, obviously I'm not going to mention any names, but they've went on. They could have been not playing, getting released, whatever. He's worked with them, changed their mindset. Not even their mindset, just their mindset in life, really.
Yeah.
And they've then went on to get new contracts, had the best seasons of their life of their strikers, you know, scored the most goals. Like, just fucking incredible how powerful it is.
Yeah.
But this is the point, I think, with football. All the bullshit about the stigma of mental health and we're doing this, we're doing that. I don't know of many low league clubs that have got somebody like Rob who's in there to genuinely fucking help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know anyone. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, this is a multi-million-pound business.
Yeah.
Why would you not have someone there to just say, lads, you're going to work with this guy because he's going to get you to be the best you.
It's a prehistoric view, isn't it? It's a prehistoric view.
It's a prehistoric industry.
It's, yeah.
It is.
I've got a couple of thoughts and a few questions off the back of that. So I always forget the guy's name, but there's a really amazing video about the All Blacks because obviously they were always the nearly team, you know, tons of ability. But I just find it so unbelievably fascinating how mindset can shift everything. And the second point, in a way, is it's such a weird balance, because I think where we've got to now is almost like you've alluded to, the mental health stuff. For me, there's a load of bullshit in it. As in, it's disingenuous, particularly in sport, but also it's almost going too far where, you know, I don't like the term snowflake because I'm not cynical at all about mental health. And I'm finding it with my own kids. It's so hard to get that balance right of pressure, you know, sort of supportive but demanding sort of environments and stuff like that. But, you know, so I think it is such a hard balance because obviously, you know, look, sport's competitive. You're going to have people wanting your place. People are in life, every walk of life, like you said, they are going to have I've experienced it in IT. You get people they're not there for the bigger picture. They're there to accelerate their career.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about anything else. And I think that is potentially just some human beings. But going back to the All Blacks, this guy came in and he actually just broke it down from a scientific perspective on sports performance. He had this thing called red brain, blue brain. And it's about the prefrontal cortex and how the brain actually works. But I would really recommend any sportsman watching it. A client of mine showed me it who played, he was in the All Blacks squad and didn't make it, but he's a really successful businessman.
Wow.
But he, that was the difference. That literally, Dan Carter, Richie McCaw, talking about how this guy came in and he just transformed everything. Because all they could think about was the fear that they had every time they had the whole country behind them. And there's really awful stats in New Zealand. I mean, probably shouldn't say it on a podcast, but we stayed there for a bit, and domestic violence goes up when the All Blacks lose. It's that serious. So the pressure that the players feel, if they don't achieve these results. But this guy came in, I think it was a year before they won their first. Hold on, did they win it early on, but then not win it for a long time? I can't remember, but. That magic team with Carter, McCaw, and all the other players, they all openly say that it was mindset that actually made the difference.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, obviously sports science, that's going into sport now, and it's changed the sport for the better, but at times it's just comes down to stuff like that. It's just mindset that I feel if you've got a team that are all going in the same direction and all want the same goal and achieve the same goal, it's a difficult team to beat. If they've all got a sort of cause that they're sort of fighting for. And that's I want to know who that is now.
It's really annoying me. It's Carey something. It's on YouTube. It's 10 minutes long. It's mega. But again, fair play to your mate Rob. I mean, it sounds like he's adding real value.
He is. He's incredible, and I still get phone calls with players now, because they might have listened to a podcast that I've done about it, and they might phone me and, I've got your number from such and such. Hope you don't mind. No, not at all.
Yeah.
I'll listen to people, but I'll always say to them that I ain't no fucking specialist. You need to speak to someone who knows what they're fucking talking about here. And then I'll always put them onto Rob. He'll always speak to them, and help them as much as he can. And it's like, and then they end up becoming clients of his at the end of the day, because he does so much for them.
But it sounded like it was that one comment he said, bollocks, there's a root to this, and it sounded like that was your light bulb moment.
That was it, because again, he understood. So Rob, the background behind Rob was he used to be a personal trainer, and he was brought in as a club masseuse at Wickham when Peter Taylor took over, because he was friend with one of the coaches, Junior Lewis, and he came in and we just clicked. And I'd left Wickham by this point. I was long gone, and we'd just kept in touch via social media. And what I really liked from him, he was a personal trainer, as I said, but he named himself the truthful trainer. And he just kept saying to people, you're fat because you choose to be fucking fat. Stop fucking giving yourself excuses. And I love blatant honesty.
Yeah.
And and I was watching him for ages with it. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I feel that I need to speak to him, but I couldn't. And then it was a Friday night. I was in an away trip in a hotel. I had a game the next day. And I thought, fuck it, I'm phoning him. And he picked up within like 3 rings. And he's like, hiya, mate. And it was as if we had never had time apart. We were just chatting away. And he's like, what's up? Something doesn't sound right. And I came out with it, and then he just went, nah, bollocks, mate. And it was just fucking so good. Like the timing of everything he said couldn't have been better for me.
Yeah, but I really like that balance, because it sounds like it's the truth. He's not hiding the truth. And I say this all the time, it's cheesy as fuck. But I do love the statement, the truth will set you free. Because it sounds like he's not dicking around. He's not saying, look, he's not going to sugarcoat stuff. But he's actually saying, look, it almost like he's saying, it doesn't make you weak to have these feelings. There's a reason.
Yeah. There's some like he's like, you've got some shit you need to work on, and if you're happy to go through that journey, he's like, it's not going to be easy. If you're happy to go through that journey, you'll understand this,
dig deep,
and you'll then be able to deal with this, and you'll know you'll know what your triggers are, you'll know exactly your coping mechanisms, how to cope with it all. I'll help you build all these. And I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
I was like, what do I do? And he started giving me books to read, and I'd read these books, and fucking he'd give me homework to do, and I just fucking loved it.
Amazing.
It was like I was fearful of it. I was like fucking excited to learn about it and like understand, like
head on.
Oh my god, I'm going to fucking not just like get myself back, but I'm going to really understand this shit.
Yeah.
And it was, for me, it was amazing.
But there's a common thread actually, because I had an experience with anxiety. Mine was sort of health anxiety in a way. I think through 20s I just lacked self-belief, self-confidence, poor self-perception. But again, it was just one YouTube video. And it's pathetic, but it was that light bulb moment where I was like, I understand this now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sounds as a reoccurring theme with all three of us, actually, that, it's almost like with a lot of people, it's like once they can understand it. But I think the crucial thing is it sounds like you were really willing to go deep. And I find a lot of people aren't willing to scratch beneath the surface. They want to deflect it. They'd rather sort of be in pain rather than actually get down to the real reason or root of what's going on.
Yeah. I think that is it. Not many people want to really do the work, I think. But the ones that are really fucking suffering will take anything
and they have to
fucking escape the way that you're feeling. That's what I think anyway. But like everybody's individual, everybody's different, and we've all got our own journeys and stories. That's just a little chapter in mine there. It makes me sound like I've been fucking this depressive person all my life.
No. For anybody listening, you definitely don't come across like that whatsoever.
But it's not at all. Like I said, I had so many good times, but it's just, I feel that the way things that have went, it always comes up in this conversation with me, because especially when I'm doing sort of podcasts around football as well, because people who knew me in football knew the character I was, and I was one of the biggest characters in every dressing room I was in. I was alpha male, you know what I mean, and nobody would fucking have a clue. Nothing was going on with me.
But that's why I think it's really important you tell that side of it. We don't need to hear stories of, unfortunately, like you said, people don't need to hear the great stuff all the time, because actually that doesn't help people who are suffering. It's like, it's fucking easy for him. And then that adds more.
But it makes it even sweeter, because when you go through some shit and you come out of it, and because I've come out of it now, and I've obviously retired from football, went into financial planning and helping people that way. I mean, I realised my true sort of core values were helping people.
Yeah.
And that's what made me want to go into what I'm doing now, because towards the end of your career in a football sense, you're the person that young lads come to.
Yeah.
You're mid-30s, but in football, you're fucking ancient. You know what I mean? Like, you're my nickname was the T-Rex, right? And I was, 37? So it was like, and I've still got lads now that will text me, and my name is the T-Rex on their phone. So football is mental at that, but you'd have lads just join the club, and like, as an experienced player, you're always there, and you're like, do you need any help? And then you'd get phone calls. How do I set up a direct debit?
Yeah.
Right.
I've never done a food shop. I've never cooked a meal. I've never done. So you're then helping these lads, like, all right, find a recipe for them, send it over, go and get these ingredients, do this. Video call me, and you need to set a direct debit. All right, we'll do it tomorrow when we're at the club. Yeah. So, but that's every experienced player within a club, really. You take that on regardless. I don't know what it's like now. I don't know if that's still the same, because I get to feel that younger lads, like I said, I am old school, and I told you the story with Wardy saying, make me a bath, run me a bath at 6 o'clock, and fucking basically done everything but tell me what degree he wanted it at. Yeah. And I'd done it. Whereas I could only imagine now, if I was still involved in football and I was, goalkeeper room together, and I went, run me a bath at 6 o'clock, you know, they'd be like, fuck off, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
You know, there's that level of respect I think is gone now. Coming up, like, I can't really say much about it because I never came through a youth team up to the first team. But when I was at Coventry, the youth team lads that came through, you know, they fucking tried their bollocks off because they knew that they might only get one chance to come up and train with the first team. Whereas when I was at Oxford at the end, it wasn't really wasn't like they were going, fuck, I'm going up to train with the first team. There was no, like, oh, fuck, like, it didn't really mean everything to them because they probably thought, I'll get another session.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, like, so Wayne Brown was the goalie coach at Oxford, good friend of mine, and he brought me in and he said, you're not going to play. Simon Eastwood's the number one and he's a fucking good goalkeeper, and he is, and he's still there now. And he went, but I need you to push him. Probably a similar scenario to when Gavin Ward came to me at Coventry, you know, so we got on really well. Me and Eastie pushed him, but at that point I was still thinking I'd like to be a goalkeeping coach after my career. I'd set up my own little school in Lane End, and I was building that up, and you know, I was thinking I've really enjoyed that. I've really enjoyed working with grassroots goalkeepers, and he was like, I really need you to be the bad cop. I know that's the way you are anyway, like, I can be an absolute bastard. So he's like, that's not in him. He's a really nice guy. He's like, I'll be the good cop. You've got carte blanche, like, don't think you need to ask me anything.
Yeah.
And we're not that far apart in age, so it's like, all right, fair enough. So it got to a stage where the young lads would come up, goalkeepers, and within the first 10 minutes I'd be like that to them, fuck off. Just fuck off. Like, you know, we would give them a chat saying, you're going to be nervous. If you're nervous, we've all been there, don't worry about it. But just make sure that what you're doing is fucking good. Like, because I was pointing it to Eastie. I went, he's got a game in a couple of days and we need to prepare him for that. So we've got a job here, me, you. So if I'm not doing it, you've got the right to fucking dig me out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like I said, no characters, like none of them really. There was times where my service would be horrendous. Nobody said a word to me.
Right.
So then I'd get angry with them and say, why is nobody fucking digging me out of here? Yeah. If that was yours, what would I say?
Yeah. But I think, this is such a I don't know if dichotomy is the right word, but it's like, you know, it's this balance between obviously protecting people, but it's also getting people prepared for the reality, and that I think is such a hard balance. Do you know what I mean? Because you need support. If you're really low, you need someone, but it's that hard. Like we did a podcast without talking about me too much, but we did a podcast where I recorded, you interviewed me, and one of the things I said to myself, if I could go back to my 18-year-old self, was just stop being so fucking sensitive. No one gives a shit about your feelings. But at the same time, I don't mean that how it sounds. You want people to be cared for, but it's almost like people need to understand what feelings are. They're just messages, but they're not.
It's almost saying you're not that important.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
stop taking it personally.
Stop taking everything personally. Everything's got this big meaning to it behind it.
Yeah.
You're not that important. Like, none of us are that important.
Yeah.
And what you're looking for in that goalkeeper is some backbone and some fucking spirit and
a bit about them.
Yeah.
And one of the lads who he's one of the ones that came through the system at Oxford, a lad called Jack Stevens. He's now went to Cambridge, and he eventually started chatting back to me, right? And it was like, fucking good. Secretly I was like, and I said to Brown, I like him, right? I really like him. But there was other ones that they didn't deal with, and then off they went, because they had nothing about them. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, and Jack always says to me, when you nearly fucking broke me, like I was on his case. But again, and it's these days it would probably be known as bullying.
Yeah.
But I'm going back 20 years ago when I had fucking, like, the stuff that I'd be saying to lads was nothing compared to what we got back then. Nothing. You know what I mean? We were fucking told when we were allowed to laugh, when we could talk, all of this stuff. And so I don't think I was anywhere near as bad as what I had received. But I said, some of the ones that can actually see what I've done with them, like Jack and the boy Sam I was telling you about, you know, since I've met them afterwards, they're like, I know, like, you nearly fucking broke me, but I know why.
I know why you didn't.
I know why you didn't now.
It's building resilience. You're coming out the other side stronger for it, isn't it, I think?
And it was like with Jack as well. We went to a Christmas party to Winter Wonderland and we're all dressed up, and there was some group of twats that just wanted to start trouble, and one of them went to start a fight with me, and I'd done nothing.
Luck.
Somebody had poured a drink on somebody.
All right.
They thought it was me, and somebody had turned around and have a go at me. 2 seconds before I could even do it, this young goalkeeper Jack come over the top of me, and he's rolling about with this lad on the floor, and I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And I get chucked out. But then that week the manager came up, and the manager was like, how was it and stuff, and I went like that to him straight away in front of everybody. I was like, you need to give him a new contract. And he was like, why? And I went, somebody started on me and he fucking leathered them. And he went, I'll speak to your agent this week. And he got a new deal.
Did he?
Yeah. So these are the sort of things that do happen in football, but I love seeing lads with character and a bit about them, cheeky, got a bit, but can back it.
Yeah.
I love that. And I think if academies can bring that back and let lads be themselves, they're not all going to be like that. You're going to get a few of them in a squad, but those ones are the ones, man. They're going to be the driving force of a team.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But if you, I mean, before we started this, I said to you, I don't really like academies, but I mean, I get told when I decided then that I was at Oxford, I said, right, I went in to do some coaching with the younger, the academy goalkeepers, and I was just like, I don't fucking like this. You know, they were late, and I was just punishing them all the time, because I was like, if you're going to just be late, then I'm just going to fucking flog yous. And then I then get told, the academy manager was like, Scott, you need to stop swearing.
Right.
And I went,
fuck off.
Yeah. I was like, you fucking joking me? And he went, no, you know, because you're swearing at them and it might put them in their shell. And I went, well, what are you going to fucking do if you send them up to the first team?
Yeah.
You're going to tell the first team not to swear at them?
Yeah.
I went, what are you going to do on Saturday if there's 5 illnesses in the first team? They need to go on and play for the first team in front of 5,000-10,000 people. You're going to go on the tannoy and say to the crowd, if this lad's having, don't swear at him because he's only young and he might go in his shell.
Yeah.
I went, what the fuck are you teaching these kids?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's where you said snowflake, right? But
Yeah.
I know what you mean. But people nowadays in football, I think, are just so scared of being called X, Y, or Z. They're so scared of it because they'll get sacked.
Yeah.
So they're just going so soft.
I do think that putting people into a fear state, there's a fine balance, isn't there? Like if you put people into a fear state, they can't handle it, they're not going to perform. I've seen that with my son.
Yeah.
But even as a dad, you know somewhere that it's like, I need to be hard on him so that he adapts to this in life. You know, I'm not trying to raise a mate, I'm trying to raise a man. Yeah. So it's kind of, but I think what's happening is a lot of people are focusing on the outcome of football. They don't think, they just see the bullshit, the cars, all of this stuff, you know, like these like the kids you've experienced. But I think we're missing sort of the point here. It's not about hiding. It's not about being weak. As in, you have to be so careful with the right language.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, like you asked me the other day, who was my biggest inspiration as a boss? My biggest inspiration was the biggest wanker, you know, as in he was the hardest guy on me. And at the time I used to whinge about it, but he just had a job to get done. And he knew that I would always step up to what he asked. Sometimes I was like, I'm not doing it, whatever. But, you know, I don't think it's an accident. I lasted 8 years in that company.
Yeah.
And again, not trying to make myself sound good, but it's so hard right now because all social media is doing is talking about everyone's feelings and everyone like, oh, I feel like this. I'm entitled to feel like this. And again, you are, but that for me isn't the point of mental health.
No.
It's not saying this is about an easy path. You know, what's that saying? If you want a hard life, take the easy path. And I think that is what is getting lost in the message. And again, I want everybody to feel supported, protected, everything. You know, mental health is a real serious issue, but it isn't just about being nice all the time.
No.
Or avoiding all difficult challenges.
Exactly.
You've got to come out the other side and experience them, because it makes you stronger in the end anyway.
It's like when I had my goalkeeping school, the first few minutes we'd all sit down together and I'd be like, right, how did everyone's game go? Who made a mistake? All of them. And I'd be like, brilliant. And then they were like, why? And I'm like, we can learn. Like, we've always got to learn from everything.
Yeah.
Making mistakes is good at your age.
Yeah.
You're nowhere near what you're going to be in 5, 10, 15 years' time. Right now, you're meant to make loads and loads of mistakes, be really happy and just, you know, try and work on never making the same mistake again.
Yeah.
Like, but you're going to make mistakes, so be happy when you do it right now, because then you're going to get better.
Otherwise you get fearful and you just...
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like one of my managers when I was at Albion Rovers, that I don't think he was meant to say it as a compliment to me.
Right.
But I took it as a compliment because he was like, he went, fucking hell, Scott, one thing about you, you might come and miss like a cross. You went, fuck's sake, but it doesn't stop you.
Yeah.
Because you then come for the next 10.
Yeah.
And he's like, and it fucking puts my heart in my mouth.
Yeah.
And I was like, I took that, I was like, that's a compliment. Like,
Yeah.
but it was like, if I'd made a mistake, it might not have been right. But I was like, right, okay. Whether I'm right or wrong, I'm the next cross that's coming in, I'm fucking either getting this ball or I'm taking somebody's head off.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to let people know.
Yeah.
So mistakes, I was used to making them from a really early age and costing your team and everything else that goes with it.
It's like you covered earlier, it's fear. It's fear and fear of failure. It's ego, isn't it?
Yeah.
People just have to try and... It's like a natural... My kids do it all the time. They protect their ego. Like, it takes... I guess everybody works it out later in life, but it's failure where you grow.
It's the old Michael Jordan one.
Yeah.
You know, he talks about free throws.
Yeah.
And fucking how many he's missed. And
Yeah.
it's just... But again, people... I suppose as a 10-year-old, you're never going to think along those lines until you get a bit older and you understand it a bit more. But I don't know. And I although I'm saying that I don't really like academies, I don't envy the job the coaches have got.
True, yeah.
You know, I don't envy it at all because it's a fucking difficult job. Because at the end of the day, you're going to crush some young lad's fucking dream. You know, and it's, whether it's right or wrong, you're making that decision. And it's...
The lad who got dropped from Oxford, I saw him. He trains with him on a Friday, and I saw him that day, and I just knew. I actually welled up a little bit because I just felt for him. But I just said to him, look, remember what you did to get there. This is just the first step. Like, out of all these kids, you're the only one who did it. So don't look at this as a failure. And it wasn't my place to say. He's not my kid, but
yeah,
I don't think. Again, failure is a real complex thing, isn't it? You know, how people deal with it.
Yeah.
But 2.5 hours in...
is that 2.5 hours? Fantastic.
Which, by the way, I could go for 7. But you made the switch to finance. So
yeah.
Because again, whilst you were playing, you were obviously working on the sports science degree. I mean, I get 2 questions is, did you get any advice from that? Because obviously we do hear a little bit more about that, thinking outside and after football, or was it just in your brain?
So going all the way back again to 2003, 2004, when I first moved down, again in a football environment, someone says, you should speak to this guy, he's done this for me. And you think, brilliant, I can trust this person. And that happened to me. So I'd started making more money and I was like, right, I was brought up in Glasgow. My mum's Italian Scottish mix, and I always say that's the tightest of fucking tight. All right, so I was brought up, and I always saved well. I was always really good with my money, and then I started earning more money, and I was living on my own, and it was like easier to then spudge a bit more and do stupid stuff as a young 23-year-old would do. And I went, right, I need to get my fucking head around this. So I'll go and meet this advisor. And so, like I said, 2003-4 time, and I was looking to buy a new house because I'd got a new contract, and I thought, right, back then, all footballers knew about was property. So it was like, right, get my money in bricks and mortar, that's the safest investment. So I bought I was 20, like I said, 23, 24, single, and I fucking thought I'll buy a 4-bed detached house. Because, yeah, that makes fucking sense. But this guy I used was from someone in the club, and this was obviously pre sort of RDR and, you know, making it regulated, and he was an absolute bastard. And luckily, like, I lost a lot of money to me at the time. But just some of the stuff that he did to me, man, I was like, I remember he was like, I'll get you a mortgage, and I won't charge you for this because I'll get paid. I think it was from Cheltenham and Gloucester. He went, I get paid from them for you taking their product. I was like, oh, brilliant. He's doing me a favour, that's good. You know, he then started investing some of my money, putting it into sort of individual stocks, and then I found out he was getting a really good kickback, and he was then making loads of money off it. And he was doing this with a lot of people.
And he was affiliated to the club, or just
no. This was just someone who had used them.
Okay.
So again, someone had obviously recommended him to him.
Right.
He'd recommended them to me. Long story short, all the money that was invested, I think I got about 10% of it back. Right. Then I get a bailiff letter through my door saying I owe him something like 7,000 odd quid. So I phoned him. I'm like, I've just had a letter. And he was like, yeah. I went, you told me I don't owe you a penny. And he went, no, I never said that. And you owe me for setting up the mortgage. And I went, you told me Cheltenham got it. So all of this happened. And from that moment, I was like, I am never speaking to one of them again. So I then went on to do everything on my own through my football career. And done some good things, done some really stupid fucking things. And coming towards the end of my career, I decided, no, football coaching is not for me. I want to get out of it. And it was in the way into training one day, and I was travelling with a couple of lads, and I turned around and I said to them, I went, lads, what do you think of this? Because I kept seeing the same mistakes getting made. Like, people trusting people who shouldn't have had full trust. And, you know, lads making the same mistakes, like buying fucking stupid trainers and not having any investments, but they've got a fucking SVR Range Rover on lease, you know, paying $2,000 a month for a car or something, you know, this kind of. And I was like, so in my head I thought, I think I could really be the sort of bridge between trusting somebody in this sort of sector, and, you know, having lived the life and done the career that they're doing, you know, I can sort of merge the two together. And then from that moment, I was like, right, I'm going to really look into this. And one of my mates, who's good mates with Barbs, that you know, he said to me, you should speak to Barbs. Fucking good guy, blah. And I went, all right, introduce me. Went and had a meeting with Barbs, and from that moment, I was like, right, I'm on this. In St James's Place, who I work at, they've got a second career academy. So when I went through it, there was fucking investment bankers, you know, there was guys coming out of college, there was guys, salesmen, there was fucking policemen, there was all sorts of people just coming in, different ages. And it was really good. And what they do is they help you get qualified, and then they make sure that you are compliant in meetings, etc. So they sort of teach you how to do everything. And then obviously I came out of that, and I worked with Nick and just sort of shadow him for the first bit and learn what to do. And then I'm in it 4 years now.
Is it 4 years?
Yeah, so it's... But again, I didn't realise at the time, but it goes back to your core values with everything that you do. And, you know, everything that I do, I want to try and help people. I seem to be this magnet to people come to me.
Yeah.
You know, not just financially, like to help them that way, but just to help them with certain... People feel they can open up to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, I always say that, it's like doing the job I do now, I fucking love it because people can open up to me and they feel comfortable, because it's a difficult subject to talk about to certain people. You know, people don't, especially intergenerational chats don't really happen. And I'm helping families, help things out, etc., and work towards inheritance tax and all the boring stuff that goes along with it. But I fucking love it. I love it.
What I love about what you're saying is you've gone through... What surprised me about your story is the lack of support you've had all the way through your footballing career, be it an agent, be it the injuries, you know, the time you went to the injuries, when you had the low points, no support. You've come out the other side of that stronger for it, and at the end of your football career, you can see the youngsters coming to you for advice, and now you've seen this kind of, you know, the end of your career, football career, and you've seen what you can do moving forward with helping other people. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's like I always say to the younger footballers that I've got, I have made every mistake that you do not need to make. Like every mistake going. So I know your career, I know where you are now, where you're going to be. I know the pitfalls that are going to come along the way. So I can help you avoid them. Plus I can help you so that if you need to retire at 32 and you're 24 just now, we'll make sure that you've got a pot of money there, that you're safe. You know, so a lot of the fear around, especially lower league, is obviously money, you know, because you don't earn anywhere near enough to retire. So you know that you're going to have to do something else further down the line. And it's like, just helping lads know that they're going to have a little nest egg. So that most people go into coaching because it's all they know. They get told that that's all they're good for. And it's not. Moose's mum, she was, my mate Moose, his mum was in advertising, she still is, and she's done really well in it. And when I was coming to the end, I spoke to her, and she made me realise how highly sought after someone who's been through a professional sports career would be to an employer. She said, if I had the chance of taking you, somebody coming out of uni with a first, I'd take you all day. And I was like, I couldn't get my head around it. And then she was like, well, think about it. In your dressing room, you deal with all different types of egos, ethnicities, just people in general. And that's not just, you've had 10 of those dressing rooms in your career. You've got unbelievable targets to hit every single day of your life. And you love achieving those targets. So I know that you're coachable. And she went through all these things and I was just going, this has never been explained to me before, ever. And it made me realise that I could genuinely go on and do what the fuck I want. To the point where, when I retired, I went to my mates for Christmas over at, just up the road there in Great Kingshill. And his brother owned it was a pharmaceutical recruitment agency. So he's a recruiter. And
I think I might know who that is. We'll talk afterwards.
Okay.
But, really good lad though, if it is who I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, so and we were sitting having Christmas dinner, and the way that he did it was he worked with outplacements, I think it was called, where companies would come to him to help someone that they were having to let go of, find another job. So we were sort of, and I said to him, that would be ideal for sports people. I went, just ideal, like, and he couldn't, his words were, I can't believe, went through my story and he's like, I can't believe you got no support.
Yeah.
None. And I went, no, it's very similar to the army, whereas one day you are part of something, the next day you're on your own, you know. And there was a guy in my intake in that academy I was telling you about that was in the army, so that's how I realised we're very similar. And he was like, no way. So he then has now set up something to help athletes transition into different sectors. And the sort of model behind it is to sort of work with athletes, not to, you know, I said, just hold their hand, tell them what they need to do, and they'll fucking do it. So he's building on that now.
But that message that your friend's mum gave to you about coming out and how your skills are transferable to another industry, I mean, that's gold, isn't it? For anyone coming out of that.
So I'm constantly telling people now.
Yeah.
But it's perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, you're coming out of this career assuming this stuff, and she's just completely flipped it on its head.
Because you get constantly told when you're in a foot, you never earn this money again. You'll never, this is the best that you're getting. And you sort of just accept that because you hear it so many times. And it wasn't until I was, 35, 36 when she was like, nah, you can fucking... I was like, fuck. It was like another one of those moments where you're like, I can genuinely really do what I want here.
Yeah.
Very liberating.
Oh my God, it was incredible because, again, if I'm totally honest, I was going down a goalkeeping coaching route just because it was what I knew.
Yeah.
It was familiar. I knew I could do it. But then the reality set in that I just wouldn't be able to have a family life. And I thought, fuck that. I want my weekends back.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm split with my ex, and so we share our children, and I've the reason that I do my job now is that I can be present also.
Yeah.
That's a big part for my life.
Yeah.
To be able to be present for the children.
Yeah.
So yeah, I genuinely love it. I know the industry probably gets a bit of a shit reputation at times because there are, and in every industry there's some shit people.
But does that give you added motivation to do even?
Well, it's like I work with Nick, who you know, and he's a fucking brilliant guy.
Yeah.
So it's like our practice, we're all the same. To the point where probably people would say we're a bit too nice, and it's like, I don't think you can be too nice.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be able to, just be honest.
Yeah.
But have a bit of empathy rather than just chasing money.
Yeah. But I think also, it sounds to me as well that throughout your career, you've gone about it sort of aligned to your core belief system and your morals, and people have fucked you over quite a few times. If you don't mind me saying, like as in, the guy who messed around with your finances, various coaches, managers, and it sounds like now what's happened is you've transitioned into a career where you can effectively provide a service that aligns to your core belief system and trust and
I think that's massive. A massive part of why I do what I do is realising what my core values were. So when I worked with Rob, it was something that we worked on together, and he's like, what do you need out of life? Like, we went really deep in conversations, and it made me realise that I'm a fucking simple human being. And I get more pleasure from helping others than what I do doing stuff for myself. I probably get that from my mum. But I get more pleasure out of seeing other people happy and doing things for other people than I do personally. So
you're using your experience as well, not only that you're enjoying what you're doing, but also using your experience to help other people as well. It's
like, because I've got, again, the big thing is I came into it with probably a bit of imposter syndrome to start with. I was like, fucking nobody's going to listen to me. Like, I've been a footballer, and then you go and meet people who are in high powered jobs and they have no fucking clue, and you think, right, okay, I get it now. I get it. I can add value to anyone's life here and future self. So that was really empowering for me as well, to realise that the advice that I do give can genuinely help change people's lives and help them potentially retire earlier and achieve goals that they've never thought they were going to achieve. And I'm only in my 4th year, so it's not like I've changed many people's lives, but I can just see in the next 5, 10, 15 years that the people that I work with are going to be really thankful that we're working together. And I think that's a big difference now. Our relationships with clients are long term, especially within our practice. The guy that I worked with, he was just a salesman, whoever's next, just numbers. So there was no sort of relationship element to it. He was just constantly on to the next. And he was just making his way through football teams, to get that. Whereas nowadays, a huge emphasis on building like long-lasting relationships. So I know Nick's got clients that he's been working with for, 10, 15 years and watched their families grow up. And that excites me to get to the stage that he's at as well. I think that's really cool.
It builds trust and credibility, doesn't it? If you've got the long-term relationship that people pick up the phone, they know what they're going to get inside of it. And, they trust the advice that you're going to give them.
And I've had bits of it as well already where people have said, with sums of money, they're like, trust you to do it. And I'm like, at first I was like,
that's a big responsibility.
Oh, fuck. Really? And then they're like, yeah, trust you. Like, you'll do what's right for me. And I'm like, no, they're right. I fucking will. So, and it's went well. So I'm delighted in what I do. Fortunate enough that people do put trust in me.
Yeah.
Because that allows me to live a life now that really fully fulfills everything that matters to me.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to complain about it.
But like your friend's mum said, the experience that you've had in the different dressing rooms, moving around, the international people you had to deal with, the different characters, that's a massive steep learning curve in terms of dealing with people, which you probably use on a day-to-day basis in your current role, trying to help people. Yeah.
Exactly that. Like I said, in football, I'm constantly telling. I'll go and do a presentation at a club, and especially if they're an academy, I'll try and hammer that message more than anything. I'll probably very rarely talk about finance, because I think everything else needs to be covered before they even buy into it, really.
Yeah.
But just to let them know that fucking what you've done here, you're in the top 2% of your industry worldwide.
Yeah.
Like, fucking hell, that's really fucking impressive.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out here, the skills that you've got here, you'll be able to do anything that you want to do.
Yeah.
And there's people out there desperate for you.
Yeah.
And you can see them changing a little bit. And then, again, I've had from those conversations, it might be 4 months later, somebody's been released. And they've emailed me and they've said, you've said this, right? I'll put you in touch with someone, speak to them, do what they say, and they'll help you.
It sounds like from the people that you still keep in touch with, you've got a really good network within the game, or the people that are going on to do, the guys that are coaching and stuff now.
I'll be honest, it's I wouldn't say I've got a massive network, because in football, the saying is your ship's in the night. You just lose track of each other. And I've got my core group of people, and I feel genuinely fortunate to have genuine friends that have come from football, because not many people have that. So honestly, unbelievably just happy with that. Like the likes of Moose, I was best man at his wedding. If I ever get married, he'll be best man at my wedding. Things like this, and that's really nice that that's come from football. So again, all the shit I was talking about, these are the really good parts of it. The friendships that you can make. I'm still friends with all the people in the Midlands. Like I said, George, the first guy I met, the kit man at Coventry, he's one of my clients now. Helping him towards his retirement, and those things they're worth more than money.
But what's really fascinating to me is people have this vision of football as an industry, right? Actually, all that tells me is, because I look, I'm sure you're the same. Well, you guys pick up friends wherever you go, but it's like anything in life. You pick up, primary school, pick up some friends, secondary school, pick up, but you don't, not all of those become lifelong friends. And actually it sounds to me that football, like you said, maybe you've got a slightly more positive experience, but it's like, I think of football where I think of these dressing rooms and these environments, they must all be mates. I mean, the United dressing room, how freaking toxic is that? I don't think any of those send each other Christmas cards, but it's really interesting to me that actually, you've sort of, I suppose like most people would in any other sort of career, you've picked up people who have become a massive part of your life, even though they were negatives, and they've stuck with you through, and you've stayed with them through these new phases.
And I think I've probably got 10 clients that were people that I've been with through football. And that for me is brilliant. Couldn't be any better for me. We keep in touch now and again with some of them. Our paths might have just crossed at the right time, whatever it was. But after all this time, one of them I played at Wickham with, And after all this time, trusted me.
Yeah.
You know, and we sat down and he's listened to me and making plans, and we're working and helping him towards his family goals and everything like that. And it's just really cool. It's such a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
Such a cool thing to do. I genuinely love it. And then obviously just having people that you know. Because I think when I went into it, I thought, I'll go into a football club and I'll get half of them to sign up to some sort of investment.
Yeah.
They'll all just listen to me. How fucking naive. You know. And then it's a case of, most of the ones that I didn't know have become clients through people saying you should speak to Scott.
Yeah.
And that's also another really cool thing, that people trust you enough to. Because we spoke about agents. There's 2 agents that I refer people to. That's it.
Right.
Because I know that they're trustworthy, and I know that they'll do the best for the guys that they look after.
And there's a lot of agents in the game, right?
And there's a lot of agents in the game. And there's a lot of agents a lot of players have got the same stories about the same agents, but still have a lot of players. You know, so it's I'm happy with that, because if people, I think the biggest compliment in my business is obviously someone referring you on and saying, you know, you should speak to Scott.
You're doing, doesn't it? And that you're doing,
And it's a really good start to a relationship with someone else then, because they just, you know, you're not building. Obviously, you're still building trust, but it's not cold. It's a nice warm start. So, football to finance, it's worked out quite well for me. I don't mind it.
I love this story, and it's very apparent to me that it shines through your love of what you're doing now, and you're 4 years in, and you light up when you're talking about it. It's fantastic. And
again, I think it's because it's one of these subjects that, I mean, if you went down to the pub together tonight, you're not going to sit and talk about your pensions.
No.
You know, your investments.
Maybe
but
not.
what I found is, like, if you went down to the pub, like, you chat about everything else to do with your life. You know, this is a real, for a lot of people, it's very taboo to speak about it, you know, so it's difficult for them to let someone else come in and talk about it and look into stuff, especially people you know. You know, I've now worked with a lot of the parents at school that my kids are at, and at first I think they were a bit like, oh, he's going to fucking know everything. But then obviously the trust has been proven, and they know what I'm about, and now they're just referring me to other parents. You should speak to Scott, and it's so organic and it's so nice.
Brilliant.
So I love it.
Yeah, amazing.
I love it.
Amazing. I mean, I guess again, I really don't want to wrap up, but I think we're pushing 3 hours, and I mean, for me, I've loved this conversation because, you know, it's an insight into football that I've never had, but again, it's the stories from that path that you've been on that I just think, you know, fascinating. But really, they're life lessons, aren't they? And and I think, you know, just amazing to hear how you've transitioned from, I mean, amazing sports career. I mean, I don't think I've ever spoken to someone who's got this far in the game in this much depth. So for me, you know, thank you so much for sharing it. But I think also, you know, to now transition into a totally new career, I just think that is such an amazing message for anybody, because, you know, especially sort of, you know, you get into different ages and you think, where am I going next? You know, and to go from football into financial advice, you know, that's and then to have the passion that you do for it, I think it's such an amazing lesson, because it's like, well, no matter almost sort of what twists and turns happens, you know, you can navigate it. And so, yeah, I mean, that's probably not a great summary, because I've learned so much more than that as well, but it's amazing insights. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me on. It was good. I really enjoyed it.
And thanks for being so open. We've never met before, but to sit here and talk to us about all the stuff we have today, it's been great. So thank you.
Yeah, just to end on, I just want to say that football is an amazing, you know, line of work. It's given me the life that I've got, you know, without having that career. There are downsides to everything, but it's amazing. We spoke about it with your son, and it's a worry, but I think, you know, if he does it, he'll have nothing but good memories also. But again, as long as it's fun for them at this age, I think
it's a really healthy reminder because, again, I don't have any illusion that, again, I don't want to put him down either. I'm not doing it for him to get into the game. But sometimes the way the conversations we have, you know, what I struggle to do is articulate the reality of the game, almost the stuff that you talked about. Something about you, you know, the biggest thing holding him back is everything we're talking about. He's got technically fantastic. His brain just hasn't worked out yet that it's all right maybe to let your opposite player maybe give him an elbow and don't stand off him, don't be intimidated, and that will come. But I think what it definitely teaches me is, again, just how at 10 years old, it's, you know, look, we all love the game. It's unbelievable. And by the way, I don't take anything you said as negative. I just took it as real. You know, it's.
We don't usually get to see that realistically.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
You know, and look, the positive. I always dreamt of playing in a stadium. Like I can't imagine what it would be like to be on the pitch, looking up at the stand, being like,
it's fucking incredible. Honestly, it is. It's something that I'll never be able to replicate.
Yeah.
In life again. And that is some of the things people say, do you miss football? And I'm like, no, because I was happy to walk away. And I think that's the difference. I chose to walk away.
Yeah.
Whereas if people don't choose to walk away, they still hold on to.
Yeah.
Before I retired, I wasn't a footballer, I was a dad. You know, I was a human being.
Yeah.
Just a normal person, and I was all right at being a footballer, being a goalkeeper. So I had a career doing that as my job, you know, but I was happy to go away for it. So when I left it, some people still, like some of my clients, that, you know, if I've got a Zoom meeting or something with them, they'll obviously see my office and they're like, oh, let's see your office, and I'll show it, and they're like, why have you got no strips or anything up? And I'm like, and I didn't even think it.
Yeah.
There's not one thing. Well, there's a few things now, but like, I've not got any strips anywhere. You would never know that I played football. The only thing that I've got in my house, and the story behind it, is my promotion medals. So I've been fortunate enough to have a few promotions in my career, and I've got all those medals. They're just hung round a plant pot on the window ledge, right? And they're the only thing. But the only reason they're there is because I went into my daughter's bedroom and they were hanging out the bottom of her drawer.
Right.
So she didn't even want them up anymore. And I was like, what are you doing with them? She's like, I don't want them anymore. I was like, well, I'll fucking take them back then, you little shit.
Amazing.
And then during COVID, I went, you know what, I'm going to auction them for charity and sort of try and raise some money, because fans of those clubs would, do you know what I mean? And then it was like I'd said the worst thing ever to them. They were like, no, they're ours. Right. And I was like, they were fucking hanging out your bottom drawer 2 months ago. So that's the only thing. And I think that tells me that coming away from the game was 100% the right thing to do.
Okay.
You know, whereas I think people in sport, elite level sport, if it's not fully 100% your decision, you're always attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's who you are as a person. You're a footballer, or you're a rugby player, or you're an athlete, or a swimmer, whatever it is.
Almost defines them, doesn't it? Whereas I don't
That
feel
is
like
it.
football's defined you. You
No.
know, it's very much shaped who you are today, but it's not defined you.
Before I finished, I was a dad.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that was the best job I could have.
Yeah.
I was a dad and I was a human being.
Yeah.
Sort of felt like I was a bit of an actor.
I've always looked at Gaza. I think he just couldn't handle not playing anymore.
No.
I think that is why he has the
Because he's
problems.
Gaza,
Yeah.
you know, and he needed the limelight.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a shame. But it happens so often, innit?
Yeah.
It happens so often with people retiring.
Yeah.
They just can't let it go.
One quick final question: if you could go
Right.
back to 18-year-old Scott on the park and playing in goal, before all the experiences you've had over your last however many years, what would you, if you give yourself one piece of advice from those days, what would it be, given what you've learned?
Genuinely, I'd just say, fuck it, enjoy everything.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Don't get too highs with the highs, don't get too lows with the lows, just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah.
Take the ride. Honestly, that'd be it. Just enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't change any of it, because it makes you who you are.
Of course it does, yeah.
So I would never change it. Wouldn't change anything to do with anything that's happened, because I love the way my life is now.
Yeah.
and I enjoy the person I am now, you know, whereas, so the 18-year-old me that would be shit scared about a lot, but on the other side, really confident at times. I'd just be like, fucking just enjoy it, mate.
Yeah.
Enjoy every second.
Amazing. I mean, I think that's such good advice as well, because, you know, it's that kind of monkey brain, isn't it, where, you know, you think the bads are going to be worse than they typically are, and, you know, like I really think that's a good message, which is just stop the extremes. You know, if everyone could just be, obviously enjoy it, you know, and feel the emotion of life, but keep a little bit more steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just fucking enjoy it, man. Like, because life's too short at the end
I
of
was
the day.
just going to say that, yeah.
Well,
You know,
we know, the last episode we recorded, someone's got limited time left, you know, and it's terrible. And it makes you realise, it puts everything into perspective.
So sad that it needs to be something like that to make us feel that way, that nothing, the only thing that's not guaranteed is time for us. So it's like, just enjoy every fucking second.
Exactly right, yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely amazing. What I mean, I wish we could carry on.
Yeah.
Well, we can, but I don't know.
I don't know if anyone would listen though.
Barbs will still be listening. Wait for us to mention him at the end there. Brilliant.
Barbs, you're such a lovely man.
Yeah, he is a legend.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.
No worries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Scott.
To celebrate.